Chapter 1536. There were only 2 candidates, and the big ice cube wanted her to guess. If it's not Xiao, then it's Xiao. If I'm not guessing. She stuck her tongue out at him. In the end, she didn't guess, and he didn't tell her the answer. He said that he didn't want to alert the enemy, and that he would reveal the secret when the time came. She felt that it made sense. After all, there was no such thing as an absolute secret. What if the 2 of them got the news and ran away? They would definitely do something like that. Later, Chu Qingyan told Jean Xian about her trip to North Korea. Jean Xian was very surprised and touched. Her friends who were resting in the palace all rushed over when they heard the news. How can you not bring me along if you're going out to play? Sima Jun sat on a chair with an "I'm sticking to you" expression. Chu Qingyan raised her brows. I'm not going out to play. It might be dangerous. Dangerous? Sima Jun jumped up, his eyes flashing with a green light. That's great. I haven't done something so exciting in a long time. Chu Qingyan. Why do I feel like this guy is the type to go wherever it's dangerous? Shan Guangtaning. Is this our master? I don't want to admit it. Hua Xiuli. This girl is living so freely, so stylish. Please bring this baby along and fly together. Lin Fengyi. Young Master Ji. Please keep your wife in check. Don't take my wife away. Ji Linyang received everyone's request for help. He smiled gently at his wife. No matter what decision you make, I'll support you. Remember to bring me along. Sima Jun chuckled. You're the best. Everyone was petrified. Cold dog food was slapped on their faces. Can I refuse to eat it? Chu Qingyan was a bit hesitant about Sima Jun's participation in the fun. After all, it wasn't Sichuan, but a country she didn't understand at all. As if he had seen through her apprehension, Sima Jun instantly regained his usual calmness and gave a profound smile. Qingyan, don't forget my identity. Perhaps your fierce cavalry is better than our Blue Manor in terms of combat, assassination, and other aspects, but when it comes to being well-informed, we might be better than you. Thus, if you bring us along, you will only benefit from it. Furthermore, if you need a fighter, we will be more than happy to help. Only then did Chu Qingyan remember the original identity of her friend, who had changed her style in the blink of an eye. If she hadn't known her identity in advance, it would have been hard to believe that this was the boss who controlled most of the underground transactions in the world. However, it was also because of this that her identity could be hidden until now. Besides, compared to you guys, we've been to North Korea before, so we know a little about it. Ji Linyang supported his wife. Chu Qingyan shook her head and laughed. I really don't know what to do with you guys. Let's go together then. Hua Xiuli, who was being suppressed by her family's miser, jumped up when she heard this. I want to go too. I want to go too. Chu Qingyan was about to say something, but Lin Fengyi beat her to it. He said softly and gently, Didn't you say that you want to be a beautiful bride? We still have to prepare for the wedding. If we go, we won't be able to prepare in time. Your wedding dress is still being made, and the business hasn't been arranged yet. What did it mean to hit the snake where it hurts? This was it. Money was Hua Xiuli's life. She thought about the pile of business deals that had yet to be discussed. Then, when she thought about the wedding day approaching, her burning desire was instantly extinguished. That seems to be the case. She nodded. Lin Fengyi's voice became even gentler. That's right. Be good. Let's prepare everything and wait for them to come back for the wedding. Hua Xiuli nodded again. Such a gentle miser was rare. She would just go along with his wishes. All the fun and exciting adventures were just fleeting clouds. The 2 of them spoke one after another, and everyone was silently petrified again. Cold dog food was slapped on their faces. 3 days later, after everyone was ready, they set off with Elder Zhua and the other 2. Because she had already made her decision, Chu Qingyan deliberately tested Elder Zhua and the other 2. Although they were very impatient about the delay in setting off, they didn't dare to show it. Moreover, when she said that she would accompany them, she was very surprised that they weren't surprised at all. Instead, they seemed to be relieved. This made her even more cautious. However, before the group left Sichuan's capital, Xiao Su looked for Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao to have a chat. Imperial brother, what does this mean? Xiao Ho looked at the imperial edict in his hand, a little confused. Xiao Su had left the palace in the name of visiting incognito. The imperial edict stated that during his absence, Xiao Ho would take on the role of regent and temporarily handle the affairs of the imperial court, while Xiao Yao would assist from the side. That's right. Why didn't you inform us in advance? Xiao Yao poked his head out of the imperial edict, also very confused. Xiao Su thought to himself, if I had informed you in advance, you would have all disappeared. Jean Xian went back to North Korea alone, and Ian was worried. She wanted to go back with him. This way, I'm also worried, so I'll leave the affairs of the country to you for the time being. I'll go with her, Xiao Su replied calmly. This. Xiao Ho felt that something was wrong. Then it's decided. If there are no problems with this imperial edict, I'll announce it in the imperial court tomorrow. Xiao Su made the final decision. Xiao Yao slowly narrowed his eyes. Something was wrong. After his imperial brother and the others left the capital, Xiao Ho stood in the courtyard of his prince's residence. Suddenly, he realized that he seemed to have been tricked by his imperial brother. Men, invite King Xiaoyao to the residence for a chat. Xiao Ho immediately ordered. King Xiaoyao was the title that his imperial brother had given to his second brother last year. It suited his personality perfectly. However, when the servant returned, he said with a bitter expression, Lord, the steward of King Xiaoyao's residence said that their lord went out to travel yesterday. Xiao Ho's mouth twitched. Did he say when he'll be back? He said that his return date is uncertain. Great, this kid slipped away in advance. What did he say about enjoying blessings and enduring misfortune together? Sure enough, he was just talking nonsense after drinking. Once something happened, he ran faster than anything else. Xiao Ho held his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. Lord, are you feeling unwell? The old steward asked with concern. Lord is feeling unwell. Lin Jiangdong shook his head and smiled. Xiao Ho waved his hand at the crowd and said, all of you are dismissed. I'll take a walk alone. Everyone tactfully retreated. Xiao Ho walked alone in the garden. To tell the truth, he could understand his imperial brother's actions. As a member of the imperial family, he could not be blamed for temporarily taking over the affairs of the imperial court. However, little rascal had not returned yet. He had originally planned to leave the capital to look for her next month. Who knew Xiao Ho had something on his mind? He walked aimlessly in the garden. When he passed by a tree, something suddenly fell. He looked up, but his hands had already reached out to catch it. Her breasts were full, and her smile was as charming as ever. Just like 6 years ago when you and I first met. Hey cheeky. For a moment he saw peach blossoms in her eyes. Chapter 1537. Pang Zhijing had never seen so many different emotions on his face before. Shock, joy, pity, heartache, anger, coldness. She opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but he was already one step ahead of her. After putting her down, he turned to leave with a cold face, as if nothing had happened. What was this situation? Pang Zhijing blinked her eyes and looked at the person in blue, who was about to walk away. Her face was full of confusion. That's not right. Why didn't this shameless person follow the plot? Shouldn't he be hugging her right now and then the two of them would talk about the pain of parting and the joy of reuniting? Why did it seem like he didn't recognize her? Did he lose his memory? That shouldn't be the case. Or did I transmigrate again? Her mind filled with melodramatic scenes one after another. Xiao Ho, who had walked 2 or 3 steps, slowly slowed down after digesting this news. Why was there no movement behind him? This wasn't like her personality. Did he scare her? Should he turn back? But she had silently disappeared for 3 years, so he couldn't forgive her that easily. And at this time, Pang Zhijing did not disappoint as she spoke up. Oh, my foot. Did you twist it? It hurts so much. It seems like it's broken. She cried out, and after a while, a pair of boots appeared in front of her. Xiao Ho squatted down and reached out his hand to check her foot, but the person crying out in pain threw herself at him. She really threw herself at him. Xiao Ho was pressed down on the grass by her, and her movements caused the leaves to fly. He looked up and saw her sly smile. Shameless person, I'm back. She hugged his neck and her voice was a bit hoarse, but it was filled with joy and excitement. Now you finally know to come back? Xiao Ho wanted to give her the cold shoulder for a bit, but he couldn't stop the gentleness in his heart. He sat up and hugged her body, as if he wanted to embed her into his body. He didn't dare let go as he tightly hugged her and gave a soft sigh. He was filled with endless yearning. If this was a dream, he hoped that he would never wake up. She rubbed against his chin. This journey had been too tiring, so she didn't want to tell him. I miss you. As soon as she said that, he suddenly hugged her tightly. Why didn't you tell me you were coming back? I would have gone to pick you up. Because I want to give you a big surprise. She smiled like a flower in his arms. 6 years ago, she fell from a tree into his arms to escape from a marriage alliance. That was the most embarrassing first encounter she had ever had. To him, it was just an opportunity to do a favor. 6 years later, she returned and fell into his arms again. This time, she wanted to give him a big surprise. However, to him, it was more appropriate to say that he was shocked. Jing Jing, it's great that you're back. There were too many things he wanted to tell her. However, when he saw her standing in front of him, smiling and acting coquettishly, he suddenly lost his ability to speak. Yeah, it's good to be alive. She knew what he was afraid of and said seriously, Xiao Ho, I'm back. I tried my best to live on, struggling on the edge of life and death. I didn't dare to give up, afraid that I would never see you again. Xiao Ho closed his eyes, the emotions in his eyes surging like clouds. He stood up and pulled her hand to walk forward. However, Pang Zhijing quickly pulled him back. Little ball is still on the tree. Whose little ball? Xiao Ho narrowed his eyes and sized her up. Your daughter. The person in front of him disappeared in an instant, as fast as a gust of wind. I'm so glad that I'm still alive and you're still here when we found out about each other's feelings. All meetings in this world are reunions after a long separation. On the road, Sima Jun looked at Xiao Yao, who suddenly appeared, and rubbed his chin. Weren't you left behind to manage the court? Did you sneak away? They had just left the capital 2 days ago when they saw a man and a horse standing at a fork in the road. They had been waiting for a long time. Since they were already prepared to sneak away, they were naturally prepared to deal with all kinds of ridicule. Xiao Yao waved his paper fan and smiled ostentatiously. I'm a brick that moves wherever there's a problem. Old Third has no problem overseeing the court alone. Moreover, I think imperial sister-in-law's matters are more important than the court's matters. I think you're just itching for a beating. We didn't come out to play. After being brothers for so many years, Xiao Su had long seen through his intentions. He could tell that Xiao Yao wanted to hand over Xishuan to the two of them, so he immediately ran away. Xiao Yao had mentally prepared himself, but he still felt a little guilty when faced with his eldest brother's cold gaze. At this moment, Father Chu, who was squatting at the side and watching his daughter tease his grandson, turned his head and disagreed. Little Shanzi, we're not going to play. Don't be like a child and think about playing all day. Go back and help Ho-Ho. He's been working hard. I'm not going to play. I just want to help. Old Third is smart. You don't have to worry about old Master Ha. Xiao Yao pretended to be obedient. Unfortunately, Father Chu didn't buy it. He shook his finger and said, Little Shanzi, just admit it. You don't want to work, but you still want to play. You gluttonous, lazy, and deceitful liar. Then why are you going to? Xiao Yao stomped his foot. Father Chu said calmly, Because I'm a child. I can think about playing all day long. When Nkong heard this, he turned his head and nodded seriously at his imperial uncle. He said, Grandpa wants to play with the baby. Second Huang Su, you've grown up. Don't be like a child and think about playing all day long. Go back and help Ho-Ho. He's been working hard. Chu Qingyan smiled and corrected him. You should call him Third Imperial Uncle. Nkong nodded and turned to Xiao Yao. Go back and help Third Huangsu. Xiao Yao puffed up his cheeks and pointed at Father Chu. He asked his imperial brother, Big brother, why can old master go too? Xiao Su glanced at him indifferently. Because he wants to. Xiao Yao wanted to vomit blood. So what if he had a father-in-law? Then what about imperial grandfather? Why is he here too? Xiao Yao pointed at the retired emperor, who was climbing a tree and looking at a bird's nest not far away. This. Xiao Su pondered for a moment, then said, As your grandson, I have no right to interfere with where Imperial Grandfather wants to go. If you really want to ask, turn around. Xiao was baffled. Just as he was about to turn around, a slap landed on the back of his head. You brat, you must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall. You dare to meddle in our affairs. Oh my heavens, when did Imperial Grandfather come? Don't hit me anymore. Grandson knows his mistake. Kong looked at Second Huang Su, who was jumping up and down after being hit by the retired emperor, and giggled. What do you think? Chu Qingyan asked the person beside her. Lao is a transparent person. He just doesn't want to spend his thoughts on twists and turns. This is also good. He can be himself freely and freely. Xiao Su replied with a faint smile. You seem to have guessed that he would sneak away? Although it was a question, her tone was certain. Xiao Su smiled but didn't say anything. If he hadn't let him go, Lao wouldn't even be able to leave the prince's estate. She didn't need to ask anything else. Seeing him like this, she already guessed the answer. Turning to look at the flexible Xiao, Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled. With this clown around, the journey wouldn't be boring. Chapter 1538. As soon as little rascal finished speaking, Xiao had already leaped onto the tree trunk, but he didn't see anyone. Just then, a soft and cute voice sounded above his head. Beauty crisp. Xiao trembled as if he had been electrocuted, then slowly raised his head. The delicate snow doll, with skin so soft that water could be squeezed out, blinked at him with her big eyes. Water spirit. You are Little Ball? His voice trembled, as if it wasn't his own voice. Little Ball rubbed her eyes and nodded, smiling cutely. Su, Liang went to find Xiao. Beauty crisp, help Little Ball take a look. Has Liang found Xiao? The doll in front of him was as beautiful as a flower. Xiao couldn't help but smile. Do you know your father's name? Little Ball said confidently. I know, he's called Cheeky. Liang said he's the best Xiao in the world. Xiao's mouth twitched. This little rascal. How did she teach her child? But the last sentence healed him. He reached out to the doll sitting on the branch and said gently, I'm the Cheeky that your mother is looking for. Little Ball's eyes lit up, overflowing with joy. At this time, Peng Zhijing had already walked to the tree. She looked up at her daughter and said, Mother has found your father. Little Ball didn't have any more questions. She opened her arms and pounced. Xiao. They were indeed mother and daughter. Their actions were exactly the same when they reunited. Xiao hurriedly flew to catch her, then returned to the tree trunk. Peng Zhijing felt as if her eyes were blurred for a moment. She saw Xiao and was a little unsteady. When the little body pounced into his arms, he felt as if he was hugging a ball of cotton. He didn't dare to use force, afraid that he would crush her. Xiao, you're so beautiful. You're the most beautiful Xiao in the world. Little Ball wasn't afraid at all. After falling from a high place, she immediately looked up at the person hugging her, smiling brightly. You're very beautiful too. You're the most beautiful doll in the world. He thought, this is the greatest joy in life. Call me daddy again. But he was still afraid that this was just a dream. Jiao. Xiao's eyes were slightly red. It was as if something had broken out of the ground in his heart, and was trying to rush out first. He hugged the ball tightly and buried his head in her shoulder. Something was wet. The fallen leaves rustled down like butterflies, as if his daughter, who had left the nest for many years, had finally returned to his embrace. This year, after experiencing all the pain and sorrow, Xiao finally welcomed the little lover of his previous life. Peng Zhijing stood under the tree and looked at his trembling back with tears in her eyes. In just a short while, the big and small figures on the tree appeared in front of her. Jing, this is our daughter. His eyes turned into crescents. He was so happy that he didn't know what to do. She smiled and nodded. Yes, our daughter. He turned his head and kissed the little ball in his arms. I'm very happy. I'm really happy. For the first time in his life, he felt the joy of being alive. He experienced what it meant to be satisfied and happy. Before this, he thought that he would be alone for the rest of his life. Now not only did he have a wife, but he also had a daughter. Happiness came too suddenly. He stretched out his other hand and pulled little rascal into his embrace. Peng Zijing hugged him back tightly. You're so thick-skinned. I'm also very happy that we're finally reunited. He responded by hugging her even harder. The little ball followed suit. She reached out her two short arms and hugged Liang Liang and Xiao Xiao's necks. Reunited. Reunited. The autumn wind rustled. However, the love in the human world was so deep that it melted the chill of late autumn. After a while, the little ball said to her father, Xiao Xiao, let me introduce myself again. I'm Little Ball. I'm 2.5 years old this year. Liang Liang, tell me your name. When you come back, I'll let Xiao Xiao give me a name. After saying that, she leaned over and kissed him, leaving a watermark. Then she laughed. Peng Zijing saw this and took out a handkerchief to help him wipe his face. She pursed her lips and said, She's so close to you when we just met. I'm jealous. Xiao wanted to say that this was because of the father and daughter, but he realized something more important. Why do you call her Little Ball? Peng Zijing coughed softly and was about to change the topic. However, the little ball, who was obsessed with appearances, had quickly betrayed her. Because Liang Liang said that Xiao Xiao's skin is thicker, so I'm called Little Ball. She felt the sly smile on his face. She looked up at the sky, the ground, and the trees, but did not dare to look at him. Little Ball, who was completely unaware, continued to cut in. But I don't think Xiao Xiao's skin is thick at all. It's so soft. As she spoke, the little ball left another watermark on her father's face. Xiao felt that his heart had been softened by her. He scratched her little nose. You're soft too. Peng Zijing, who thought that she had escaped a calamity, was about to breathe a sigh of relief when a cold voice came from behind her. If you dare to say it, you must dare to admit it. Don't you think so, mother of the child? Peng Zijing felt that she was in the wrong. When she had given the little ball a nickname, she had not thought much about it, but now it had become his little weakness. But she was her daughter. How could she not be able to decide on a name? She thought stubbornly, but as soon as she turned around, a fawning smile appeared on her face. All right, you want to lecture me as soon as I come back. Can't you say a few words to coax me? Xiao was amused by her aggrieved and innocent look. You're already a mother, but you still like to act coquettishly. I don't care. I'm the same age as your daughter. I want to act coquettishly. She refused to give in. Little Ball said in all seriousness, Liang Liang, you're not the same age as me. You're 3 or 4 times older than me. And Little Ball doesn't know how to act coquettishly. It's so childish. Ah. Peng Zijing was dumbfounded. Was she being despised by her daughter? And Little Ball continued to add, Liang Liang, you're so childish. Xiao snickered, but he soon received an angry glare from Little Rascal. He coughed softly, then took her hand and laughed softly. It's okay. I can raise 2 daughters. A daughter-in-law and a daughter. I feel like you're not comforting me. Peng Zijing said angrily. Xiao raised his hand to stroke her messy hair, then smiled dotingly. Then how do you want me to comfort you? The person in front of her had features as gentle as the spring breeze, and as handsome as a prince. She was momentarily dazed. Liang Liang, Xiao, Little Ball is hungry. At this moment, a pitiful sentence interrupted the two of them as they looked at each other affectionately. Xiao smiled tenderly, then walked forward with the treasure of his life in one hand, and the treasure of his heart in the other. Hungry? Then I'll take you to eat. Peng Zijing tilted her head slightly to look at him talking to Little Ball. One big and one small, full of interest. She smiled as she watched. Chapter 1539. The family of 3 entered the courtyard, attracting the attention of countless people along the way. When the old steward received the news, he immediately ran over. Despite his age, he looked like a young man. When he saw the charming Peng Zijing and Little Ball walking on her short legs, the old steward burst into tears. Princess, you're finally back. You don't know how my lord has survived these past few years. When they were in Prince Yi's mansion, the old steward took care of her, so Peng Zijing immediately greeted the old steward respectfully. When Lin Jiangdong heard the news, he was surprised. It was unbelievable that a person who had disappeared without a trace would appear before him like a corpse. This is... Lin Jiangdong asked Little Ball, who was sitting in his lord's arms and rolling her big eyes. This prince's daughter, Xiao said proudly. Ah. Lin Jiangdong was dumbfounded. Not only did the princess come back, but she also brought a baby? Not only Lin Jiangdong, but everyone else present was shocked, followed by ecstasy. Ha 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 ha, their lord had a descendant. Then this old servant will prepare lunch immediately and instruct the kitchen to make all the best dishes. The old steward was so happy that he almost walked in the wrong direction. Little Ball chuckled. Grandpa is so cute. Xiao pinched her little cheeks, his eyes full of smiles. Lin Jiangdong, who was standing at the side, looked at Lord, who finally knew how to smile, and his heart was filled with emotion. Ever since the princess left, he had never seen Lord smile, let alone be so happy. The heavens really took pity on him. Lin Jiangdong bowed to Pang Zhijing and said sincerely, "Thank you, princess. Thank you for being alive. Thank you for coming back despite the past. Thank you for not letting Lord live alone." Pang Zhijing didn't expect Lin Jiangdong to give her such a big bow. Ever since she met this person, he had always been biased against her. Although he was very considerate to her in terms of etiquette, he had never been so respectful. She hurriedly waved her hand and avoided his salute. This was her thick-skinned trusted military advisor. Being thick-skinned was very important. She could not accept such a big salute. When Xiao saw this scene, he did not stop her. She had already returned, which meant that she was the mistress of this place. There was no need to regard her as an outsider. Moreover, he also wanted to start helping her establish her authority. When the kitchen got the news, they immediately took out their special skills and made a table full of sumptuous dishes that looked, smelled, and tasted good. The family of 3 sat around the table. "Do you want Daddy to feed you?" Although he had not yet recovered from the ecstasy of seeing his precious daughter, Xiao gradually recognized the fact that he did not seem to know how to take care of a child. She was so small, he was afraid that she would break if he held her in his hands. Although it was very difficult, he still wanted to try. Unexpectedly, Little Ball swayed her 2 little braids and said seriously, "No need, I can send some food to eat." Xiao was very surprised. Such a small child knew how to eat by herself? But when his youngest daughter picked up the chopsticks and ate like a model, he was really convinced. "Nan nan liang liang, eat quickly. It won't taste good if it's cold." Little Ball stuffed her mouth full of rice, and did not forget to call out to Nan Liang. "Jing Jing, is she always so sensible?" In the face of Thick-Skin's incredulous question, Pang Zhijing smiled proudly and said, "Yeah, who taught her?" Hearing this, Xiao reached out and placed his hand on the back of her hand. He was moved and said, "You've worked hard." She stuck her tongue out at him, then picked up some food with her chopsticks and put it in his bowl. She said with a look of disdain, "Eat quickly. Look at how thin you are. You must not have eaten on time. I think you can't even compare to your daughter." It could be seen that Thick-Skinned had been living a terrible life when she was not around. Everyone looked at her as if she was the goddess of mercy who had saved them from suffering. Xiao could not out-talk her, and this was indeed the truth. He let go of her hand and picked up some food for her. The meal ended happily. Nan nan hug. Nan nan kiss kiss. Nan nan look. After eating, Little Ball turned on its clingy mode, calling out coquettishly wherever it went. "Wow, Nan nan, your house is so big and beautiful. This is your house too. Nan nan, put me down. I want to chase butterflies." After saying that, Little Ball ran off to the flowers like a ball, huffing and puffing. Xiao and Pang Zhijing stood side by side and smiled as they watched their youngest daughter chase butterflies. "It's rare to see her so clingy," Pang Zhijing said softly. When Xiao heard this, he turned to look at her. She continued, "When I was pregnant with her, I was still in a coma. After giving birth to her, I was in a half-awake state most of the time due to excessive bleeding. I didn't hold her much, let alone breastfeed her. Perhaps it was because I was injured, but she was really very small when she was born. Yen Luo and the others had to resuscitate her for a long time before she was able to keep her. She was really a very smart and sensible child. When she knew that I was injured, she never cried and asked me to hold her. She only knew how to lie on the bed quietly. When she could crawl, she would not climb on top of me. She spoke later than other children, and when she spoke, the first thing she said was that Bao Bao will be good." Pang Zhijing's tears fell as she spoke. On the other hand, Xiao was already heartbroken. He reached out to hug her, and hugged her tightly in his arms. From the moment she could walk, she did everything by herself, whether it was brushing her teeth, putting on her clothes, or eating. She never asked for company. She was even more independent than other children her age. Every time, she would sit quietly by the bed to accompany me and make me happy. When she knew that I had to take medicine every day, she would feed me sweets and say that she was afraid that I would suffer. She was already choking with sobs. Xiao didn't know what else to say. He could only listen with heartache as she rambled on about the past that he had never been a part of. There was a type of punishment in this world known as the heart punishment. The weapon didn't draw blood, but every blade penetrated the bone. There was no wound, but it was so painful that one couldn't breathe. Xiao's voice was low and hoarse as he spoke with endless regret. Jing Jing, I should have accompanied you. I've let you and your mother down. She sniffled. Xiao, I'm telling you so much not because I want to blame you, but because I want you to know that little Ball is really very obedient and sensible. In this lifetime, you must treat little Ball well. We owe her too much. Not only did he owe little Ball, but he also owed her. I'll use my entire life to treat her well. As for you, I'll never let go. If it weren't for you, no matter how beautiful the world is, it would have nothing to do with me. Shameless. During those 3 years when she was isolated from the world, she was in a coma. Although she didn't have any news about him, she had many dreams about him. At that time, she didn't dare to believe that he had done so much for her, but now she believed it. I'll never let go of you again. That time at the cliff won't happen again. Chapter 1540. In the afternoon, Xiao stood in the small garden with his lover from his previous life. Nan, what flower is this? Clivia. Then what is this? Peony, the king of flowers. Wow, Nan, you know so much. Awesome. Little Ball immediately turned into a fangirl, looking at him with adoration. It was only a few small questions, but he was able to receive unreserved praise from his little daughter. Xiao was extremely flattered, and felt a greater sense of accomplishment than when he made the ministers speechless in court. Little Ball stretched out her arms towards him, and Xiao bent down to pick her up. Although it was the first time they met, there was no barrier between father and daughter. Perhaps this was the power of blood. Nan, you're so awesome. You can lift me up high. Little Ball sat on Nan's shoulder, dancing with joy. The scenery in front of her changed instantly, and she was very happy. If you like it, Daddy will often take you to play in the future. Xiao's face lit up with a smile. Okay. Little Ball nodded repeatedly. Xiao looked at the sun, and said as he walked back, we should go back. Okay, let's go back and find Liang. Little Ball struggled to get down. Daddy will carry you back. Little Ball said with a serious face. Liang, tell me how far you want to go. Xiao was surprised at her sensibility, and bent down to put her down. He saw her run a few steps forward, and then turned around to wave at him. Nan, hurry up. Xiao smiled and followed with his hands behind his back. The father and daughter found Pang Zhijing by the stone table in the garden. At this time, she was leaning against a tree trunk, asleep. Little Ball saw from afar, and immediately turned to put her index finger to her lips, and whispered to Xiao, Nan, be quiet, Liang is broken. Xiao's heart immediately softened. He nodded and quietly walked to Little Rascal's side. Then he slowly squatted down and looked at the sleeping person. He did not know how she fell asleep. Just now, she was urging him to play with Little Ball. At this time, Lil Ball sighed like a little adult. Liang's body isn't good. Sometimes she falls asleep after saying a few words. Now that she's sleeping here, the wind is so strong. What if she catches a cold? If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have stayed out so late. Liang must be tired from waiting. The child's unintentional words were taken seriously by the listener. Xiao's heart ached. All these years she had suffered so much. He was still blaming her for not coming back earlier. In fact, it was already a miracle that she could stand in front of him. Don't be afraid, father is here. Xiao carefully picked her up. She did not wake up even after all the commotion, which showed how tired she was. He gathered his thoughts and carried her back to the room. After covering her with the blanket, he sat by the bed and reached out to caress her face. He had not seen her for a few years, and she had become thinner. When he carried her just now, he could clearly feel it. He did not know how she gave birth to little Ball when she was so thin and weak. Nan Nan, Liang Liang often hurts. I'm very sad, but I have no choice. Auntie Ching shrunk. Liang Liang needs to drink medicine, but it's very bitter. My heart aches. But I don't dare to cry in front of Liang Liang. I'm afraid Liang Liang will cry too. I want to be a strong little ball. Sometimes, you don't dare to cry because you have no one to rely on. You know that crying is useless. But now that she had Daddy, little Ball looked at her mother who was sleeping on the bed. Her eyes immediately reddened and her tears fell. She could no longer control herself. Xiaoho's heart ached so much that he could not control himself. He hugged little Ball and patted her back gently. He comforted her with a hoarse voice. Little Ball is very strong. Your father and mother's good daughter. Little Ball sobbed. Nan Nan Nan, do you think Liang Liang will stop hurting in the future? She will, she definitely will. Daddy promises. He solemnly promised Su. Even if he had to give up everything, he would protect both mother and daughter. Okay, I believe you. Little Ball smiled through her tears. Xiaoho lovingly wiped away the tears on her face and washed her face. Then he heard her say, Nan Nan, I want to sleep. Okay, I'll carry you to sleep. I want to sleep with Liang Liang. I used to stay by Liang Liang's side. That way, she'll be the first to see me when she wakes up. She won't feel lonely. Little Ball blinked its big eyes and said each word seriously. He knew that for the past 2 years, little rascal had been in a coma in bed. Xiaoho's eyes reddened. Today, when he heard little rascal say that little Ball was very sensible, he remembered it in his heart. But he did not expect her to be so sensible. He suddenly understood where little rascal's deep self-blame and guilt came from. Because she did not have the right to be willful and act spoiled. She had to learn from him at a young age. She was really too sensible. Xiaoho hugged little Ball. At this moment, he could not say a word. Words could no longer express his feelings. When he reached the point where he could not speak, the pain was so heavy that he could not speak. Nan Nan, don't be sad. I'll be very obedient. Little Ball did not know what was going on and clumsily comforted him. It's because you're too obedient that Daddy feels so useless. After covering little Ball with a blanket, Xiaoho sat by the bed and watched over the 2 babies of this life. Nan Nan, good afternoon. Little Ball said and obediently closed her eyes. Good afternoon. Xiaoho leaned against the bedpost and quietly stared at the big and small one, as if he could not get enough of looking at them in this lifetime. After so many years, his heart, which was like duckweed, finally found a place of peace. He raised his hand and stroked little rascal's cheek. You know, I'm so grateful to the heavens for letting you descend into my life. If not for you, I don't know how many years I would have to live like a walking corpse. When the sun was about to set, Peng Zhijing slowly woke up. When she was about to get up, there was already a pair of hands supporting her arms, helping her sit up. She raised her head. In her sleepy eyes, she saw the elegant and handsome face that she had been thinking about day and night. For a moment, she could not tell where she was and thought that she was still in the Medicine Valley. Her eyes immediately became wet. She raised her hand and lightly hit his chest. You're so thick-skinned. You didn't even come to see me. It's so uncomfortable for me to be alone. Xiaoho subconsciously hugged her and held her in his arms, letting her hit him. She could not tell if it was a dream or reality. When she woke up, she suddenly had a gap to vent her emotions. I'm lying on the bed. My entire body hurts, but I don't dare to move. I don't know how much medicine I've drunk every day. You know that I'm most afraid of pain and crying. I've endured so much. But do you know what I'm more afraid of? I'm afraid that I won't be able to come back. I'm also afraid that I won't be able to take good care of little Ball. I don't know how to explain it to you. 3 years, more than 1,000 days. I miss you so much. Her strong pretense of being strong collapsed at this moment. He hugged her tightly and did not say anything, because his heart ached so much that he did not know how to comfort her. Chapter 1541. After she was tired from crying, Peng Zhijing finally woke up. She was a little annoyed that she had said all this, but she couldn't take back what she had said. She really wanted to play dead. I think I'm still not awake. I'll go back and sleep for a while. She rubbed her eyes and didn't dare to look at him. She didn't want to admit that she was the hysterical shrew just now. Just as she was about to crawl back under the covers, she was picked up in the air. Hey, what are you doing? She was afraid of falling and immediately grabbed his collar. Xiao looked at her deeply. I'm taking you somewhere. I'm not going. She turned her head and resisted. What a joke. She had smeared her tears and snot all over him. She was too ashamed to see anyone now. Little Ball just fell asleep. If you're not afraid of waking her up, I don't mind talking to you here. Xiao put her down. Peng Zhijing immediately hugged his neck and gave in. She said pitifully, I'll go with you, okay? The angry little tiger suddenly became obedient like a kitten. Xiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but more than that, he felt pity for her. Xiao took her out of the room. She didn't know where he was taking her and asked curiously, Where are we going? You'll know when we get there. Xiao hugged her steadily and walked forward step by step. With his baby in his arms, he took every step carefully. She wasn't afraid that he would sell her off, so she didn't care. She snuggled in his arms comfortably. This kind of weather was the best for sunbathing and sleeping. He lowered his head. She squinted her eyes like a lazy kitten, and a part of his heart began to warm up. Just as she was about to fall asleep, she heard a pleasant voice above her head. We're here. She opened her eyes abruptly and saw that he was holding her and sitting on a chair. Look up, he said in a low voice. She raised her head obediently, only to see a patch of green above her head. And in this patch of greenery, bunches of grapes that looked like purple pearls hung on the vines. At this time, the moonlight was warm, and they swayed in the night wind, mischievous like purple elves. This is. She was at a loss for words. Didn't you say that when the grapes were ripe, you would eat them all? His gaze turned to the strings of purple. A year ago, I moved those grape trellises to the prince's mansion. I only hope that when you return one day, you will be able to see them all the time. When he said this, his tone was calm and tranquil. He wasn't trying to claim credit, nor was he trying to sweet-talk her. However, in her ears and heart, it was as if a flower had bloomed, and her eyes gradually moistened. Shameless. She hugged him and buried her head in his shoulder. What should she do? She wanted to cry again. But this time it was tears of joy. In the future, if you want to eat grapes, I'll pick them for you. If you want to see them bloom, I'll water and weed with you. What do you think? He owed her too much. Right now, he only wanted to pile all the beautiful things in front of her for her to choose from. This was supposed to be a warm and romantic scene, but Peng Zhijing felt that something was wrong. It was strange. In the past, his shameless self would only tease and tease her. It was like a joke, eating, sleeping, and playing with Lildo. He would eat, sleep, and play with Jingjing. This time, he was clearly not right. Peng Zhijing looked up from his shoulder and grabbed his collar with one hand. She shook him and said, Who exactly are you? A shameless person wouldn't be so mushy. Give me back my shameless self. Sure enough, wherever Peng Zhijing was, romance would not last more than 3 seconds. Xiao's mouth twitched, and he held her mischievous hand. What nonsense are you saying? If I'm not Xiao, who am I? Peng Zhijing finally stopped, but there was still suspicion in her eyes. Could it be that she had opened it the wrong way? Wait. If he was indeed a shameless person. Peng Zhijing instantly narrowed her eyes. Shameless? I thought you didn't know how to flirt, but now it seems that you have a lot of tricks up your sleeves. Tell me honestly, when I wasn't around, did you go out to flirt? Look at you, you must be very popular with girls. Xiao was tidying up his collar that she had messed up. When he heard this, he almost fell off the chair. However, he seemed to have smelt something. Was little rascal jealous? He held her shoulders and leaned forward. The distance between the two of them was so close that it was only a piece of paper. Their breaths mingled, and the surrounding air kept heating up. You're jealous? The two of them were already close to each other. With this, her whole body was enveloped by him, and she couldn't move. Coupled with his sudden question, Her whole body was as hot as a cooked lobster. She said against her heart, "Who's jealous?" Before she could finish speaking, she was stopped. Xiao used a bit of strength to hold her back, and pulled her into his embrace. He desperately wanted to tear her apart and eat her up. Gentle but domineering, lingering but not passionate. Pang Zhijing felt as if she was surrounded by a ball of fire. It was scorching hot, and she couldn't help but want to sink into it. Only when she really couldn't breathe did Xiao let her go. The two young bodies were tightly hugging each other. It was as if there was nothing in this world that could separate them. After her breathing stabilized, Pang Zhijing raised her head and reached out her hand to caress his thin face. "Xiao, don't blame yourself. Really, it's not your fault." Although she was magnanimous, it didn't mean that she couldn't see that the person in front of her had been looking at her with a guilty gaze. He was blaming himself and imprisoning himself. Seeing him like this, her heart ached. Jing, if you knew the truth about the assassination that year, you wouldn't think this way. Xiao laughed at himself. It was accompanied by bitterness and fear. If she knew, would she leave him? However, she didn't have the reaction he expected. On the contrary, she gave him a comforting smile. "I know everything. I knew it when we were at the cliff." At that time, although she was injured, she hadn't fainted. She saw those black-clothed men bowing to him, but he angrily rebuked them. Seeing that scene, how could she not know? She wasn't stupid. Xiao froze on the spot, and the words he had prepared to say to her were stuck in his throat. Then do you hate me?" He couldn't ask this question. He was afraid that if she didn't forgive him, then the warmth in front of him would turn into bubbles and burst. Pang Zhijing had always thought that he was a two-faced and cunning person. He was so smart that he could see through other people's thoughts with a single glance. But now she realized that not only women in love would have their IQ lowered, men were the same. She couldn't help but poke his chest. She said with disdain, "You're so stupid. I'm back. Do you think I came back to take revenge on you?" Prince Yi, who had always been eloquent, was speechless at this moment. Sure enough, if you ask the world what love is, it's just that everything has its weakness. Chapter 1542. It seemed that if she didn't make things clear to him, she would probably see him looking nervous and afraid that she would run away. That way, people would think that she owed him $1 million. "Xiao, although you did something wrong, didn't you pay the price?" Pang Zhijing sat up straight and held his face with both hands. She looked into his eyes seriously and said word by word, "I don't know how you've been through these past few years, but when I came back and saw you, you were dispirited, had lost your will to fight, and had lost weight. I'm very happy that you have me in your heart, but I'm also very sad that you've become like this because of me. But do you know what I'm thankful for? You've let go of your hatred and returned to your true self. This makes me very happy. If suffering is for a person to live a better life in the future, then I feel that what I've experienced in the past few years is all worth it. Xiao, the past is the past. Let's forget about it. To us, the future is more important." She wasn't a person who would talk about principles, but every word she said now was like an invisible hand that untied the knot in his heart one by one. Jing. He pulled her into his embrace again. His heart was surging with waves that couldn't be calmed down for a long time. Growth was to continuously fall, be injured, climb up, heal and become strong. She leaned into his embrace and played with his fingers. She naughtily raised her head and kissed his chin. Then she giggled and said, "If you really feel bad, then treat me even better in the future. I know that women here have 3 obedience and 4 virtues, but you definitely don't know that men have 3 obedience and 4 virtues. Then I'll teach you today. You must remember." Pang Zhijing was a person who thought very quickly. Normal people wouldn't be able to keep up with her. However, Xiao was already used to her way of doing things. He raised his eyebrows. The 3 obedience and 4 virtues of men sounded quite refreshing. Listen carefully. She cleared her throat. The 3 obediences: when your wife goes out, you must follow. When your wife orders, you must obey. When your wife says something wrong, you must blindly follow. The 4 virtues are: you can't talk, scold, hit, or provoke. Xiao was a little dumbfounded. It was indeed refreshing. Seeing that he did not respond, Pang Zhijing could not help but repeat. Do you remember? Looks like I won't be marrying a wife in the future. Instead, I'll be having an empress dowager at home. So, Xiao pinched her chin and lowered his head to bite her lips. Then he rubbed the teeth marks on her full red lips with his fingers before he slowly replied. So you've already admitted that you're my Xiao's woman? Wait a minute. Things didn't seem right. Pang Zhijing immediately calmed down. If she admitted it, wouldn't she be at a disadvantage? She hadn't even been proposed to, but she had already given birth to his child. If she were to admit it, wouldn't she be too embarrassed? Stop! She raised her hand to stop his approaching lips and glared at him. There's nothing between us now. If you dare to touch me, I'll sue you for molesting a woman. Xiao couldn't help but laugh in his heart, but his face remained serious. Who says there's nothing between us? We even have a child together. If you're not my wife, whose wife are you? Little Ball is my daughter. It has nothing to do with you. She raised her chin and said arrogantly. Oh, you mean that you've eaten me clean, but you don't intend to take responsibility for me? Xiao approached her with a smile that didn't look like a smile, his words revealing a hint of danger. What? Pang Zhijing was dumbfounded. Who was eating who? Who was going to take responsibility for who? This person's ability to distort right and wrong was getting better and better. You're shameless. She held it in for a long time before she finally said this sentence. Xiao said righteously. I'm going to lose my wife soon. What's the point of being shameless? Pang Zhijing choked. What he said made so much sense that she was actually speechless. Xiao, I realized that after not seeing you for a few years, your skin has become even thicker. I heard that the thicker the skin, the easier it is to get a wife. Xiao even nodded in a serious manner. Pang Zhijing felt that she had lost to him. In the past she couldn't win against him, and even now, she still couldn't win against him. In the end she raised the white flag and admitted defeat. Forget it. Since he was her person, there was no harm in being thicker. Where did this demon come from? It's better if you don't harm others. This old monk will take you in right now. She held his face and kissed him heavily on the lips, stamping her unique seal. Xiao was amused by her words. Moved, he reached out to pull her back and deepen the kiss. After a long time, Xiao looked into her eyes and said seriously, Jing, don't leave me in the future. Pang Zhijing leaned against his chest. Her lips curled up as she slowly nodded. I won't leave. I want to know how you've been all these years. He stroked the strands of hair by her ear, and said gently and lovingly. There's nothing to say. It's very boring. She lowered her eyes, not daring to look at him. It's okay. I'll listen to you. He caressed her cheek with extreme gentleness. Those days when he wasn't able to participate were her pain, and also his pain. He wanted to know how she managed to survive those years. Pang Zhijing looked up and saw the intense pain in his eyes. She was stunned for a moment before slowly nodding. Okay. Under the moonlight, under the grapevines, one spoke softly while the other listened quietly. Those unbearable pain at this moment were like the wind blowing through green leaves. Only the rustling sound was left, and it was no longer that heavy and uncomfortable. It turned out that when two people shared the burden, it really wasn't that unbearable. This night seemed very short, but also seemed very long. When she said that she was tired, the moon was about to set. He protected her in his arms and thought about what she had just said. He sat there quietly, allowing the dew to wet his clothes. After a long time, he finally carried her and went back the way they came. After a while, a servant came to report that someone had come to visit. He then left the room and went to the guest hall. A figure stood in the hall. Seeing him enter, the figure politely bowed. Xiao was no stranger to this person. She was eldest brother's subordinate in charge of intelligence gathering, Water Spirit. Your Highness Prince E. My master asked me to come and ask if you still remember what he said before? Water Spirit asked with a smile. Xiao finally remembered what his eldest brother said to him before he left. I will send you a big gift. If you like it, promise me one thing. Xiao raised his eyebrows. At first, he thought that his eldest brother's words were a bit strange, But his imperial brother never said nonsense. Now he finally understood. Return quietly was his imperial brother's gift to him. Otherwise, no one could quietly send someone to his prince's mansion without being noticed, except for his imperial brother's Xiao cavalry. Although he had a vague guess in his heart, Xiao still asked, "What does he want this prince to agree to?" Chapter 1543. Water Spirit smiled mysteriously, then took out a bright yellow imperial edict from her sleeve and presented it with both hands. "This is what my master asked of you, Lord." The bright color was enough to blind people's eyes. Looking away from the imperial edict, Xiao didn't reach out to take it. Instead, he turned around and sat down on a chair, smiling faintly. "Why is my brother so sure that this prince will accept this imperial edict?" He didn't need to look at the contents to know what was written. As early as 2 years ago, when his brother ascended the throne, he had seen his brother's reluctance. The position that should have been fought over by everyone was of little value to his brother. In the past few months, he had noticed the changes in personnel in the imperial palace, but his heart wasn't there, so he didn't pay much attention. But a few days ago, when his brother left with his sister-in-law, he temporarily took over the affairs of the imperial court and stayed in the palace for a few days. Only then did he discover that all the guards in the palace had been replaced, and his brother's people had basically been transferred away. Only then did he know what his brother was planning. It turned out that from the beginning, his brother had already made preparations to retire, but he didn't tell anyone. No wonder his brother kept assigning the affairs of the imperial court to him, and his second brother these past 2 years. It seemed that this plan had already been in place before he ascended the throne. In these years, his brother didn't show any signs of leaving, but he was already prepared to leave at any time. And this time, Gene Xian's matter was just an opportunity, giving him a perfect excuse to escape. As expected, he still couldn't compare to his brother's meticulousness and patience. But this hot potato, he didn't want to accept it, especially with the return of Little Rascal and Little Ball. He wanted to use all his energy to accompany them. Water Spirit didn't panic because of Xiao's question, and asked respectfully, "Could it be that Lord doesn't like the gift my master gave you?" "This king is naturally happy to receive such a great gift. This king is indebted to my imperial brother, so this king will naturally repay this favor. However, this king will not agree to do so in such a manner, so I must ask Miss Xueling to pass on a message to my imperial brother. This king is very grateful to him, but this imperial decree should be given to the right person. This king's ambitions do not lie here." Xiao spoke leisurely with a sincere smile, making it impossible for others to refute or force him. No one could bear to make things difficult for such a gentle man. However, Water Spirit seemed to have expected that this mission would not go so smoothly. Her expression did not change, but the smile in her eyes deepened. She took out a letter from her sleeve and said, "Lord, please read this letter before you make a decision." "This is?" Xiao was puzzled. "It's a letter from Yan Luo and Ethereal to the Lord. It explains Princess Pang's condition," Water Spirit replied with a smile. Xiao did not hesitate. He immediately took the letter and opened it. He read the words more carefully than ever. The contents of the letter were about Little Rascal's current physical condition, as well as the medicine and care methods he would need for the next year. It was a densely packed long paragraph, but Xiao patiently read it line by line. "May I know where Miss Chung and Ethereal are now? I would like to thank them in person for saving Jijing." Xiao put away the letter and asked earnestly. Water Spirit shook her head. "They are already on their way to North Korea. Before they left, they said that a doctor should treat her like a parent. This is what they should do. Please don't take it to heart, Lord." Xiao nodded. Then he would count this favor on his brother and sister-in-law. He would repay them in the future when he had the chance. However, does my brother have any other instructions? He did not believe that his brother would ask Water Spirit to take out the letter for no reason. The timing was too coincidental. He knew that his brother would never do anything useless. Water Spirit looked at Xiao with admiration. As expected of her master's younger brother, he was very clever. He could see the problem at a glance. Then she would not beat around the bush. "Lord, Do you know where to find the dozens of medicinal herbs that Ethereal wrote in the letter? Do you know where to find the spirit spring that Princess Pang needed to soak in because she was injured in bed before and after giving birth? Xiao raised his eyebrows. Water Spirit seemed to know what he wanted to say, and continued with a smile. Although those herbs are rare, with Lord's ability, it is not impossible to find them. However, 1 or 2 stalks is not a problem. A year's supply is far from enough. Xiao finally took this question seriously because he believed that his brother would not speak without thinking. So what does my brother mean? Just as his master said, Princey would not be calm as long as it was related to Princess Pang. There are all the herbs that Princess Pang needs in the national treasury. The spirit spring is also in the imperial palace. My master said that as long as Lord accepts the imperial edict, you can use the herbs in the national treasury and the spirit spring in the imperial palace. Sure enough, he hit where it hurts. He knew where his weakness was with just a pinch. Xiao narrowed his eyes. As expected, his brother had already set up a trap for him to jump into. However, he had to move forward even though he knew it was a trap. After Water Spirit left, Xiao looked at the imperial edict in his hand and shook his head with a smile. Although his brother handed this hot potato to him, his brother had already managed the Sichuan well in the past few years. All the problems left behind were solved. What was left for him now was a peaceful and prosperous era without the corruption and chaos of many years ago. His imperial brother was also using his own methods to make up for him. The amount of herbs that little rascal needed was so large and so rare. It must have been hard for his brother to collect them. In fact, he owed his brother another favor. He opened the imperial edict and looked at the flamboyant words on it. He couldn't help but smile. It wasn't that bad. Jingjing needed to recuperate in the past few years. The environment in the imperial palace was the most suitable for her. Not only was there an endless supply of the most precious herbs, but there were also the best imperial chefs and imperial physicians. If she needed anything, he just needed to give an order, and it would be sent to Little Rascal soon. Xiao closed the imperial edict and strode to his courtyard. At this time, Little Rascal had already fallen asleep. He took off his clothes and lay down, hugging her from behind. In a daze, Pang Zhijing felt that he had returned. She mumbled, "Why did you only come back now?" Xiao pulled her into his embrace and rested his chin on the top of her head. He teased in a low voice, "Jingjing, what should I do? For you, I owe my brother a lot of favors again." Why? She was a bit confused. She had no idea what had happened. "You don't need to care about the reason. How are you going to repay me?" He didn't need to tell her about the responsibility and righteousness he was willing to take on for her. She also didn't need to know. Those were matters between men. She only needed to be responsible for recuperating and staying by his side. Pang Zhijing seriously considered this problem in her half-asleep state. Seeing that she was really thinking about it, Xiao really liked her dazed cuteness. He leaned forward and nibbled on her earlobe in a flirtatious tone. "Just use your entire life to repay your debt." Pang Zhijing didn't hear clearly. She only felt a hand messing around on her body. She wanted to say something, but her lips were blocked. A lifetime, neither long nor short. It was just enough to repay the debt. Chapter 1544. The night was slightly chilly. The night breeze blew, and the leaves rustled. The moonlight shone on the ground, elongating the shadows of the trees. As time passed, the shadows moved slowly. Inside Prince Yi's residence, the elegant room should have been filled with romance and gentleness, but at this moment, there was a strange silence that was difficult to disperse. When Xiao and Pang Zhijing were honest with each other, the flame of passion that had been ignited was instantly extinguished in that pair of elegant eyes. This was because he saw scars of various sizes on that fair, jade-like body. Although they had already healed, he could still imagine how dangerous it had been and how much pain she had been in through those hideous scars. He straightened his body and reached out to touch the scars on her back. Pang Zhijing, who had been surrounded by fire just a moment ago, felt the temperature drop in an instant. She couldn't help but open her eyes and instantly met his bewildered gaze. She quickly guessed why he had such an expression. She couldn't help but pull up the blanket to cover the scars on her body. She pursed her lips and looked away. Xiao Ho, don't look. So ugly, don't look. But the moment she grabbed the blanket, the back of her hand was covered by his hand, stopping her in her tracks. She was stunned and raised her head to look at him. She only heard him say to her in an extremely gentle voice, "Jing Jing, let me take a look." His voice was full of tenderness, but there was no disdain in his eyes. Peng Jijing slowly let go of the blanket and lowered her head. Her black hair fell from her temples and covered her face. At the same time, the scars of various sizes on her back were also exposed. Anyone who practiced martial arts could tell that those were scratches. Some were only as short as a fingernail, while others spanned the entire length of her back. It was as if this beautiful woman was going to be cut in half at the waist. His gaze shifted upwards. On her shoulder armor, there were all kinds of scars. Xiao Ho's eyes were filled with shock and regret. He raised his hand and slowly stroked those scars. His voice was filled with suppressed emotions. Are these all left behind from the cliff that day? Yes. Fortunately, there was an old tree at the bottom of the cliff at that time. I fell on it and borrowed the branches and leaves to reduce the impact. The scars on my back were caused by the branches at that time. Although they look terrible, they are actually not very serious. The more serious injuries are that my hands and feet were smashed on the rocks on the ground. My arms were broken, my hamstrings were broken, and my internal organs were almost displaced. She didn't want to tell him at first, but in the future as husband and wife, they would see each other every day. It would be difficult for him not to see it even if he didn't want to. She might as well tell him at once, so that he wouldn't be filled with worry and self-blame in the future. However, she didn't know that her calm narration of these things made Xiao Ho feel even more uncomfortable. He wished he could suffer for her. His hands caressed her shoulders, her arms, her feet. Bit by bit, he carefully examined them. Facing his lover who had been lost and found again, absence made the heart grow fonder. At such a time when they were facing each other, it should have been difficult for him to control himself. However, he restrained himself. There was no lust in his eyes as he carefully and lovingly kissed those scars. Does it still hurt? He caressed one of the scars on her ankle. It was obvious that her hamstring was broken, and then reconnected. His heart twitched. She shook her head. It doesn't hurt anymore. At that time, I was probably numb from the pain. My whole body was injured and I couldn't tell where the pain came from. It felt like my body didn't belong to me anymore. As soon as she finished speaking, she was pulled into a warm embrace. She could feel his fear, pain, and love. She knew that he would be like this as soon as she came back. Xiao Ho, I was already awake a year ago. But do you know why I waited until today to come back? Why? His voice tightened as he asked in a low voice. She leaned on his shoulder and said softly, "Because if I came back then, I was afraid that you would feel even more heartache for me. So I decided to stay and recuperate so that I could stand in front of you again, full of energy." She pursed her lips and her voice suddenly lowered. But those days of recovery were really tough. You weren't by my side, so I could only bear it alone. I was like a child, learning to walk step by step. With every step, my hamstring hurt so much that it felt like a knife was cutting it. I gritted my teeth and told myself that if I didn't walk 1,000 steps today, I would have to postpone seeing you by another day. So no matter how difficult it was, I had to do my best to complete it. I wasn't afraid of the medicine no matter how bitter it was. With the little ball and the memories you gave me, I felt that bitterness was sweet at the same time. This afternoon, he wanted to hear her talk about what had happened in the Medicine Valley. She didn't go into detail and didn't tell him how hard it had been for her. He could imagine how painful it must have been to reconnect a broken hamstring. Her bones were broken and there wasn't a single part of her back that wasn't injured. But at this moment, there was nothing he could do. He could only listen to her speak. Every word was like a knife cutting his heart. Xiao Ho, I wasn't a strong-willed person in the past. Everything I did was short-lived. When I met with difficulties, I would take the initiative to avoid them. I never thought of using my own strength to solve them. Peng Zhijing suddenly said in a serious tone. Xiao Ho couldn't help but look up at her in a daze. But ever since I met you, I learned not to hide from my true feelings. It was you who gave me the courage to face all the hardships. It was also you who gave me hope for life. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gritted my teeth and persevered under those circumstances that were more painful than death. Those pains couldn't be described with words. But at this moment, what she wanted to share with him was her growth. It was he who taught her how to love someone. It was also he who taught her that behind love was giving. But during your most difficult days, I wasn't by your side. Xiao caressed her face, his eyes full of regret. Pang Zhijing shook her head. No, you were always by my side in my dreams. In your dreams? He was surprised. She nodded. When I was pregnant with little Ball, I was still in a coma. There were many times when I almost couldn't hold on any longer. I would see you in my dreams. You would hold my hand and accompany me quietly. That gave me strength. There were also times when I could see you but you couldn't see me. When I saw you feeling depressed because of me, I couldn't wait to walk in front of you and tell you that I won't allow you to waste your life for me. Perhaps it was because of this that I managed to hold on again and again. Xiao was stunned. Because in these few years, little rascal had also appeared in his dreams countless times. When the two of them compared, he realized that their dreams were actually the same. This is too inconceivable. She couldn't help but widen her eyes. When longing triumphed over distance, there would be miracles. Xiao hugged her tightly. Maybe the heavens want to make up for all the hardships we've suffered all these years. Pang Zhijing nodded. Actually, towards those painful experiences that she couldn't bear to recall, she was even more glad that he wasn't by her side, because she didn't want him to see her struggling on the edge of life and death. Seeing it with your own eyes was even more painful than hearing about it. For her, it was painful, but for him, it was torture. How could she bear to? Chapter 1545. Those who had met Pang Zhijing in the past would have thought that she was a simple-minded girl, who didn't seem to care about anything and didn't need to. In fact, people who didn't seem to care about anything would spend a lot of energy and focus on something that others couldn't compare to once they became obsessed with it. That was why she broke free from his grasp at the edge of the cliff, so that he could live well. Her love was strong and resolute. As for Xiao, because of the injustice he had suffered when he was young, there was a hole in his heart that couldn't be healed even after he applied medicine on it. Pang Zhijing's appearance was like a clear spring that washed away the poison and helped him heal the wound slowly. In this world, there was finally someone whose arrival coincided with the hole in his heart. Xiao, let bygones be bygones, okay? Pang Zhijing tilted her head and said mischievously. Xiao's gaze was still on her wounds. But the wounds are still there. She couldn't let go of them. Do you dislike them because they don't look good? Pang Zhijing seemed to have ignited an explosive. She hugged the quilt and glared at him. All right, I didn't expect you to be such a superficial person. I've finally seen through you. Fortunately, I haven't married you yet. There's still time to turn back. Let's break up. The gloomy and sorrowful atmosphere dissipated with her shout. Xiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What was going on? Why was this little rascal still acting like she used to? He pulled her and the quilt back into his arms and laughed. You're abandoning your husband and daughter so soon? No, I'll take our daughter away. You can live alone. She naturally knew that he didn't mean that, but she just wanted to find fault with him. I'm just afraid that you don't think they look good. Xiao raised his hand and tapped her nose with an affectionate smile. Pang Zhijing smiled. What's there to be afraid of? The wounds have healed and don't hurt anymore. Moreover, Yanluo has developed a lot of good medicine to remove scars. It won't take long for me to recover to my former self. That's good, he said softly as he rubbed his fingers against the scars on her shoulder. At this point, it was about time to end the topic. Suddenly she blinked her eyes. Her hands were all over his smooth and elastic skin, making her heart stir. Just now, he had teased her until her entire body was steaming hot. Now he was stuck again, which made her a little angry. Pang Zhijing rolled her eyes and put her hands on Xiao's shoulders. With a push, Xiao was pushed onto the bed by her. The two of them were naked to begin with. Being so close to each other, the friction generated heat. Pang Zhijing finally had the sense of accomplishment of turning over a surf and singing. She sat on top of him, and the corner of her mouth hooked up into a very flirtatious smile. She bent down and caressed his face. "Beauty, you have to serve me well tonight." Xiao Ho's entire body tensed up, and the fire in his eyes seemed to be rekindling. He said ambiguously, "I will definitely live up to your expectations." Just a moment ago, Pang Zhijing was still very satisfied with his cooperation, but in the next moment, the world spun, and her whole person was separated. Tonight she was going to be a queen. But before she could finish, he stopped her. "Don't worry, you'll be satisfied." After he finished speaking, he didn't give her a chance to speak again. And this night, other than broken syllables, she didn't say a single word. This was the story of digging a hole for herself, but she still had to jump into it. Jingjing's strength was the interpretation. This night, Pang Zhijing felt that her waist was about to break. But a certain someone still refused to stop, and worked hard. Sure enough, a man who was abstinent was terrible, but a wolf who was abstinent was even more terrible. Jingjing's strength was once again the interpretation of this sentence. When the darkness faded and dawn was about to arrive, the bed that had been shaking all night finally quieted down. Xiao Ho contentedly hugged the person who had no strength to sleep tightly in his arms. Losing something and then regaining it, there was nothing more satisfying than this. "Shameless, you bad silver, bad silver." In her sleep, she muttered softly. He smiled, but hugged her even more tightly. "Life and death contract," Yuzi said. And on the top of a mountain thousands of miles away, two figures were quietly snuggling together. "Big Ice Cube, why are you so sure that Old Third will willingly take over your stall?" Chu Qingyan tilted her head and asked in confusion. "Guess." She thought hard for a while, and suddenly her eyes lit up. Could it be because of Zhijing? Xiao Su pinched her cheeks as a reward, and then smiled faintly. "He's a loyal person, and because of this, he has a reason to take over." "Sigh, Old Third is also pitiful, to have an older brother like you who's doing everything possible to drag him into the pit." She saved her face from his hands, and then sighed with emotion. Xiao Su sneered. "Not necessarily. Pang Zhijing's injuries were so serious, and although she had survived, she would need at least a few years of recuperation before her body could recover. And the things in the national treasury were enough to support several Pang Zhijings, so he would only be happy and not complain." Chu Qingyan was of course joking. In this world, other than her and her parents, Big Ice Cube only had these two younger brothers that he cared about the most. Perhaps he owed Xiao Ho in the matter of the throne, but he would make up for it in other ways. This was her family's Big Ice Cube. Although he didn't say it, he helped you think of everything. He was really a cold, delicate, and gentle Big Ice Cube. "Big Ice Cube, I'm really happy." Facing the little one who suddenly took the initiative to hug him, Xiao Su was a little surprised. He hugged her back, and rested his chin on the top of her head, a faint smile on his lips. "What are you happy about?" "I'm happy that the best husband in the world was picked up by me. I'm really too lucky." She rubbed against his collar, and smiled in satisfaction. Xiao Su was a little surprised, but then the corners of his lips rose. How could he not have met the best girl in the world? "Big Ice Cube, you really did what you said. Take me away from the imperial court and travel with me." She always thought that this was a thought that could only exist in her heart, and not be put into action. These past few years, she had watched him throw himself into the construction of the country, forgetting to eat and sleep. Her heart ached, but she couldn't help him in any way. So how could she use those promises to make him worry? But today, she finally understood that he had worked hard to solve the major matters in the imperial court, and stayed up all night to correct the memorials. It was all to help his two younger brothers grow up as quickly as possible, and to pave a bright path for Sichuan. In the end, it was all to fulfill his promise to her. With a husband like this, what more could a woman ask for? "I'm serious about every word I've said to you." He stroked her hair as he said this lightly. The pain and tiredness of the past few years were nothing compared to him. She nodded heavily. Big Ice Cube was really fulfilling his promise to her. This kind of partner was reliable for life. "However, before we take you out to play, we have to solve the problem in front of us first." When Big Ice Cube finished speaking, Chu Qingyan turned to look at the people from Yangyan sect not far away. She said with a faint smile, "You're right. Then let's treat it as a farewell banquet before we go out to play." Chapter 1546. Standing at the top of the mountain and looking into the distance, it was misty and wet. The mountain was covered in maple trees, and there was only white and red in front of his eyes. He couldn't help but think of that poem. Far away on the cold mountain stone path, there are houses in the white clouds. Stopping to sit in the maple forest, the maple leaves are redder than the February flowers. Xiao and Kong hugged Hualing's leg with one hand, and couldn't help but reach out to touch the lingering mist. However, when his finger touched the white mist, it turned into water vapor and wet his finger. He retracted his finger and wiped it on Hualing's pants before calmly saying, "As expected, you can't touch the mist." As for Hualing, he looked at his pants. Not only were there water stains, there was also dirt and some grass. "My little ancestor, it's fine if you're obsessed with cleanliness, but can you stop wiping it on this subordinate's clothes? This isn't your towel." Turin looked at him. Useless. At this time, the Emperor Emeritus and Father Chu were sparring on the mountain peak, not caring about the frightened reactions of the people around them. "This is the first time we've discussed the sword in this kind of place. Interesting, interesting." The Emperor Emeritus waved his branch and smiled contentedly. Father Chu waved his bamboo pole and chuckled. "That depends on who we're talking to." Mother Chu stood to the side and prepared a towel for the two of them, smiling as she looked at them. Jean Xian and Xining went out to get some water and fruit. When they returned, Jean Xian handed the wild fruit in his hand to the little master. Elder Zhua and the others who had been trying their best to reduce their presence along the way finally couldn't take it anymore. Elder Zhua walked in front of Jean Xian and sincerely said, "Young sect master, you are the future successor of the Sunblaze sect and have a noble status. This kind of manual labor isn't something you should be doing." Jean Xian ignored them and continued to feed the little master. Protector Chui said with disappointment, "Young sect master, this is beneath your status. You're no longer Sichuan Empress attendant. Don't be so depraved." Jean Xian was very displeased that they said such things in front of the little master. His brows furrowed, and just as he was about to speak, the little master, who was holding the wild fruit in both hands, raised his head at this time. His gaze was sincere and embarrassed. "Why do you always chatter and bother Jean Xian Su? Do you also want Jean Xian Su to pick the fruit for you to eat? But this baby feels that you guys are old and shouldn't be able to chew them." Moreover, Mother said, "Don't do as you wish." Although Kong was young and didn't know much about the ways of the world, children didn't have the messy desires of adults. Their senses were very sharp. Ever since these people appeared, he felt that his Jean Xian Crisp was no longer so happy. He often frowned, which made little Kong very dissatisfied. Their family was very protective of their shortcomings, and little Kong was no exception. Therefore, today's words had been hovering in his heart for a long time. He just took the opportunity to say it. Although these childish words were dismissed with a laugh, the little child in front of them was no ordinary person. He was the little prince nurtured by the Sichuan emperor. His words carried an invisible deterrence. Although it was very faint, it could still be felt. Moreover, he wasn't speaking empty words because when he spoke, the surrounding air immediately froze. Elder Zhua and the rest knew that although there weren't many people in their group, they didn't know how many people were secretly following them. Moreover, these people's martial arts were very high. Not to mention Xiao Su and the rest, even Turin and Hualing might not be able to defeat them. Therefore, when little Kong finished speaking, those secret guards who usually didn't show their faces immediately released a murderous aura, causing them to be unable to breathe. A wise man submits to the circumstances. Elder Gui, who didn't speak much, came out to smooth things over. He bent over and tried to squeeze out a kind smile at little Kong. "Little young master, we don't have any other intentions. We're just worried that young sect master is working too hard." Little Kong expressed that he didn't feel anything towards this wolf-like smile. He took a bite of the wild fruit and rolled his eyes. "If you're worried about this, you can help Jean Xian Crisp." Mother said it's all talk and no action. The three of them flushed red from little Kang's words. At this moment, The retired emperor and Father Chu finished their competition and walked over. The retired emperor's sharp eyes saw the thing in his hand and said cheerfully, "My good great-grandson, what are you holding in your hand?" Father Chu immediately glared at him. "Why do you always steal my lines?" The retired emperor shrugged. "You're too slow, are you blaming me?" Just as the two of them were about to roll up their sleeves and fight again, Little Nkong placed the wild fruit between the two of them. "Great-grandfather, grandfather, this is the fruit that Jean Xian Chris picked. It's very sweet. Try it, it's just right for you to grind your teeth." "You're really my good grandson." Father Chu kissed Little Nkang's cheek and looked at the retired emperor proudly. The retired emperor ignored this childish brat and patted Little Nkang's head, praising, "You're really my good great-grandson." Who was the one who said that they couldn't bite these fruits? Now he gave these fruits to the retired emperor and Father Chu to eat, and even said that it was for them to grind their teeth. This difference in treatment was too obvious. Elder Zhua and the other two were petrified in the wind. Hualing, who had witnessed everything, couldn't help but laugh. He nudged the person beside him and said with a grin, "Have you noticed that the little master is getting smarter and smarter? He could kill people without spilling blood just by moving his mouth." Turin nodded in praise. The little master has always been very smart. It was just that the people around the little master were too smart, so he rarely had the chance to show it. Now that he was faced with these three people, the little master could easily crush them. Jean Xian retracted his gaze from the little master. The warmth in his eyes dissipated and was replaced by mockery. "I've said it before, I only agreed to go back with you. I didn't admit my identity, and I don't think that doing this is degrading my identity. Before you appeared, if Master hadn't saved me and taken me in, I'm afraid that there wouldn't be a Jean Xian in this world. My life was given to me by Master, so," Jean Xian paused, his gaze cold. "So you don't have the right to interfere with my freedom and criticize my matters. If there's a next time, it's fine if I don't go to North Korea." But Elder Zhua still wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Elder Gui. The latter shook his head at him, so Elder Zhua restrained himself and stopped trying to persuade him. Only then did the three people unwillingly leave. Jean Xian didn't pay attention to them anymore. To him, these people who appeared out of nowhere weren't worth wasting any of his energy. He thought that since the little master liked these fruits so much, he would just go and pick some more. He immediately turned around, but when he saw Xining standing behind him, he immediately stopped walking. His gaze revealed confusion and worry. Xining had always been optimistic and cheerful. There was always a smile on her face, but at this time, she pursed her lips and her eyes revealed weakness. Xining. Chapter 1547. Jean Xian frowned slightly, thinking that something had happened to her. "What's wrong with you?" Xining pursed her lips. She immediately retracted her emotions and tried her best to smile. "I'm fine. I think there's not enough water. I'll go get some more." Without waiting for him to respond, Xining immediately turned around, as if there was a wolf dog chasing after her. If she said it was fine, then it was fine. Jean Xin immediately chased after her. At this moment, Xiao and Kong lay on by Yutong's body and pointed in the direction where the two of them had left and asked curiously, "Where are they going? Are they going to pick fruits? Can baby go pick them together?" The Grand Emperor stroked his beard, his eyes clear. "They have something to settle. Let's not disturb them." Xiao and Kong nodded sensibly. When Jean Xian, Su, Xining and Yi returned, he would ask them to bring him to play. The two people who were standing not far away saw all of this. Sima Jun leaned against the tree trunk and raised her eyebrows slightly. She looked at the person beside her. "Aren't you worried?" "Worried about what?" Chu Qingyan stood on the mountain peak against the wind and turned to look at her. She asked despite knowing the answer. "Of course it's your two little lackeys. Didn't you notice that something was wrong between them?" "I didn't notice anything. Aren't they playing around over there?" "Playing around?" Sima Jun only reacted for a moment. "I realized that we're not on the same channel. Do you know who I'm talking about?" Chu Qingyan blinked and raised her chin at snowflake cake and glutinous rice ball. Sima Jun facepalmed. "I really have to hand it to you. Seeing that she was about to tease her, Chu Qingyan smiled and tilted her head. Actually, I know what you said, but we're outsiders and it's not good for us to get involved. There are some things that they have to deal with themselves. Sima Jun raised her eyebrows. You don't seem worried at all. Chu Qingyan chuckled. What's the use of worrying? Besides, her gaze landed in the direction where the two of them had left, her eyes sparkling. I believe that Jin Xian will handle this matter well. Xining is not an unreasonable person. Perhaps they are young now and some things can't be explained clearly, but in the end, everything will be perfect. You're that confident. Sima Jun's tone was obviously suspicious. Chu Qingyan said rather confidently, of course, I'm the one who brought them out myself. Not to say anything else, that is enough. Sima Jun smiled. But I have another question. Go ahead. I know that you have already left the palace. Why do you still want to take this risk? This was something she could not understand. Chu Qingyan did not answer his question. Instead, she asked, if Shan Guang or Tanning were involved in such a situation, what would you do? Sima Jun instantly understood. As expected, my question was superfluous. Chu Qingyan smiled, her gaze becoming serious. Sima, I believe in fate between people. Everyone who appears in life and everything that happens has a reason. 8 years ago, Xining and Jin Xian appeared in my life. I never thought that I would go so far with them. However, with the accumulation of time and the deepening of our relationship, they are no longer my subordinates, but the most important family in my life. No matter what they encounter in the future, as long as I can help them, I will not shirk my duty. I believe that Shangguang and Tanning feel the same way for you. Sima Jun looked at the bright and beautiful woman in front of her. She suddenly remembered that many years ago, when she found out about this person in the Blue Manor, she was curious about her and admired her, but she never thought that they would cross paths. She did not expect that 5 years later, she would meet with her in Jiangnan when she met with misfortune. She had to admit that the fate between people was truly miraculous. Qingyan, I think that befriending you was the best decision I made 3 years ago in Jiangnan. Aren't I the same? Chu Qingyan looked deeply at the person in front of her. She and Sima had known each other for almost 3 years. She was really touched that Sima had sent so many people to the front lines to support her. We are indeed the right friends. Sima Jun stretched out her hand. After the trip to North Korea, let's travel the world together. Chu Qingyan smiled and held her hand. Okay. Who said that only men had brotherly love? Women also had sisterly love. In the distance, Jin Xian caught up with the person who was scurrying ahead. He reached out and grabbed her wrist, stopping in front of her. Jin Xian's face darkened as he forced her to look into his eyes. Xining, is there something that you can't tell me? What have you been avoiding lately? Xining wanted to avoid his gaze, but under his insistence, she had no choice but to raise her head. She met his confused and slightly angry eyes. Jin Xian, don't ask anymore. I'm fine. Master said before that if a girl says she's fine, then she's fine, Jin Xian said firmly. Xining lowered her eyes and remained silent. When Jin Xian saw this, he held her shoulders with both hands and said seriously, Xining, if there's something on your mind that you want to tell me, even if I can't share your burden, you won't feel uncomfortable holding it in. But I'm afraid that if I tell you, you'll be put in a difficult position. Xining finally relented. If you don't tell me, how do you know that I won't be put in a difficult position? Jin Xian patiently tried to persuade her. Xining's eyes were filled with hesitation and struggle. In the end, under his interrogation, she revealed what was on her mind. Jin Xian, I'm afraid that you won't be able to come back after going to North Korea. I have a feeling that this trip will cause the distance between us to widen. I'm not trying to stop you from looking for your family. On the contrary, I really hope that you can find family members who love you dearly. However, my heart can't help but panic. You're the sect master of a clan, and I'm nothing. What right do I have to stand by your side? In the end, it was because of her lack of confidence that she was worried about her gains and losses. Jin Xian was stunned when he heard this. You still don't know me? How could I abandon you? Xining stared at him in a daze. Jean Xian's eyes were filled with tenderness, and he reached out to pull her into his arms. Silly girl, no matter if I'm Jean Xian or Murong Yinxian, I'm still your future husband, and the father of your future child. This is something that no one can change. He would never forget that she was the one who pulled him out of the darkness of solitude and stuffed him with candy and chestnuts. Therefore, no matter what kind of background he had, no matter how many family members he had, he would always be the Jean Xian that she led forward. This time, I'm only going back because I want to put an end to the past. If I can't personally help my mother and master settle their debts, I won't be able to live in peace for the rest of my life. So don't worry. Once I've settled these matters, if you want to raise fish, I'll raise fish with you. If you want to plant flowers, I'll plant flowers with you. No matter what you want to do, I'll accompany you. Jean Xian was usually a man of few words, and he preferred to express his feelings through actions. If it weren't for the fact that he wanted to make her feel at ease, he wouldn't have racked his brains to say these things. As for Xining, it was already shocking that he had said so much today, let alone these heartfelt words that were close to a confession. At this moment, she finally dared to cry out loud, pouring out her fear and worries. Jean Xian, don't leave me. Jean Xian hugged her even more tightly. I won't. Even if I die, I'll take you with me. Amen. She nodded heavily. Chapter 1548. When Xining and Jean Xian walked out hand in hand, Sima Jun could not help but look at his good friend in admiration. It's as you expected. Of course, he was someone she had groomed. Chu Qingyan shrugged. Let's go and see how they're doing. Seeing that the two of them had returned, Xiao Kong ran over with his short legs. He stared at Xining's red eyes for a while, then asked, Jean Xian, Su, did you bully Xining Yi? Xining turned his head away in embarrassment, while Jean Xian squatted down and patted his head. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Why would I bully her? Then Yi's eyes. Xiao Kong was puzzled. Xining hurriedly replied, it's because the wind was too strong and got into her eyes. Xiao Kong nodded doubtfully. But mother said that this kind of excuse is usually a lie, but I believe that Xining Yi didn't lie to me. Jean Xian coughed softly, while Xining was crying in his heart. Little master was too mischievous. At this moment, Chu Qingyan and Sima Jun had already walked to the small table that had been temporarily set up on the other side. Xiao Su and Ji Linyang were studying a map. This is. Chu Qingyan looked at the terrain above, and felt that it did not look like something she had seen before. She could not help but feel puzzled. The map of North Korea. Ji Linyang raised his chin at the three people standing at the side, and smiled ambiguously. They handed it over today. Chu Qingyan looked at Elder Zhua and the other two and frowned slightly. She and Big Ice Cube had accompanied Jean Xian home in the name of accompanying him home. But these people had discussed everything with them, as if they were in charge. It could not help but make people wonder what these people were planning. Call Jean Xian over to take a look, she ordered. Not long after, Jean Xian arrived. Jean Xian also noticed that something was wrong. His gaze calmly swept over the three of them, and then returned to the map. Why did you only take it out now? Master and the others may not have the right to ask this question, but that didn't mean that he didn't. Jean Xian knew the reason why Master called him over, so he bluntly questioned these people. Elder Zhua and the others looked at each other. In the end, Elder Zhua stood up and said that he had forgotten. He was old and his memory was not very good. Chu Qingyan sneered in her heart. This person looked more shrewd than anyone else. This kind of reason could fool a 3-year-old child, but how could it fool them? However, it was clear that they were not worried that they would be suspicious. It was as if they were certain that they would not expose them. How interesting. At this moment, Xiao Su spoke up. According to what you've said, we can reach the border of North Korea by tomorrow? Elder Zhua nodded. That's right. After passing through this mountain, we'll reach the nearest town. His words made everyone involuntarily look at the place surrounded by mountains. Could they really reach it in one day? Instead of crossing one mountain after another to block the way? That had better be the case. Xiao Su's voice was calm, but it imperceptibly gave off a kind of pressure. The three of them immediately responded respectfully. After the three of them left, Sima Jun leaned over and lightly tapped the yellowed map with his finger. He asked, really? It doesn't look fake. Ji Linyang pointed at the edge of the map. Don't you feel that this place is very familiar? Sima Jun looked at it seriously. It's very familiar. It seems to be the place we've been to before. Ji Linyang nodded and asked. Do you still remember how we got to that place? Sima Jun raised his eyebrows. I think we fell into a valley and accidentally barged in. But I'm very curious. Why did it feel like we were in a dream? Then we forgot the specific route. Chu Qingyan listened to their conversation and frowned slightly. Big Ice Cube. Why do I feel that North Korea is very mysterious? Xiao Su clasped his hands behind his back and said indifferently, North Korea. I've never heard of it before. For a country to exist so mysteriously, it must be very powerful. Jean Xian, who had been quietly listening to their conversation, suddenly spoke up. Master, why don't you and everyone else not go to North Korea with me? You can all go back. Chu Qingyan was about to speak when Sima Jun spoke first. Little Jean Xian, we're already here. You're asking us to go back. Are you joking? Jean Xian said awkwardly. But it seems that this trip will be very dangerous. I don't want everyone to take the risk for me. Ji Linyang smiled and said, Little Jean Xian, do you think your master hasn't considered these problems? Don't think too much. The most important thing is to prepare for the next enemy. Hearing this, Jean Xian looked at his master. Seeing his master nod at him with a reassuring smile, he swallowed the rest of his words. Half an hour later, they set off. Everyone continued to rest where they were. Chu Qingyan gently patted her son, who was sleeping on by Yutong's body. Her gaze was as gentle as water. At this moment, she heard Big Ice Cube's voice. I've already asked Water Spirit to bring some people over. Hearing this, she couldn't help but turn her head. You want her to come over and help? Xiao Su nodded. If you want to know the strength of a country, you just need to look at the layout of their cities and roads. I've studied their maps. From this, I suspect that this country isn't as peaceful as they say. At the very least, they have two opposing factions. Otherwise, their cities wouldn't all be defensive types. For us, the most disadvantageous thing right now is that we don't know the other side well. Also, the words of those people surnamed Zhui can't be trusted. So we can't be too passive. Chu Qingyan nodded in agreement. Then, does third brother still need help? Xiao Su smiled. Instead of worrying about him, you should worry about second brother. What does he have to worry about? She was completely confused. Because he had left the capital without permission and left Xiao Ho alone. Xiao Yao had been extremely obedient along the way. He was worried that his imperial brother would find trouble with him, so he kept his tail between his legs. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Marriage is an important matter. Xiao Su smiled ambiguously. Before leaving the palace, second brother's lady mother had asked him to help with this matter. Chu Qingyan suddenly realized that Xiao Yao was already at the age of marrying a wife. It was just that he always did some indecent things, making people forget that he also needed to get married and have children. His lady mother's intention is that as long as it's a woman, it's fine. We'll do as we see fit. Xiao Su said, rather amused. His lady mother must be so worried about his marriage. Chu Qingyan snickered, then winked mischievously. What kind of girl do you think is suitable for him? Xiao Su saw through her thoughts and played along. What do you think? Of course it's someone who can subdue him. With second brother's personality, if he wasn't a little more formidable, a good match would probably turn into a resentful one. Alright, as long as you know what to do, I'll leave this matter to you. Chu Qingyan rubbed her hands and laughed mischievously. The eldest sister-in-law is like a mother. I'll definitely help him find a good wife that he'll be satisfied with. At the same time, Xiao Yao raised his head and happened to meet imperial sister-in-law's fervent gaze, as if she was weighing how much he could be sold for. He immediately shrunk his neck. No way. He had been so well-behaved recently. He hadn't done anything bad. How scary. He had to stay away from sister-in-law. Chapter 1549. After the group crossed the mountain, they arrived at an even taller mountain. Everyone stopped in their tracks, confused. Turin brought Elder Zhua and the others to the front. Jean Xian walked up to them. Didn't you say that we could reach the border here? Where's the road? Chu Qingyan and the others looked at them calmly. Although they were here to help Jean Xian, they were not in a position to stand up for him. Moreover, this time, she wanted to train Jean Xian's ability. Elder Zhua immediately said, "Young sect master, don't be impatient. The road is here." As he spoke, he nodded to Protector Cui and Elder Gui. The two of them walked past the crowd and walked to the front of the mountain. They reached out their hands and groped around. It was unknown what kind of strange technique they used, but after pushing the mountain rock a few times, the two of them quickly retreated. Soon a heavy sound was heard. The mountain soil brushed down, the earth shook, and the mountain shook. Even the leaves rustled. Xiao Su hugged his son and wife and took a few steps back. Those who could not dodge in time were covered in dirt. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes at the three people. His murderous aura was obvious. Elder Zhua felt the strong hostility and immediately begged for mercy. "I'm really sorry. We haven't opened this mountain gate for many years. We didn't expect the mountain rock and dust to be so heavy. We forgot to remind you. Sorry. This excuse was barely acceptable. Chu Qingyan pulled Big Ice Block's sleeve, and he withdrew his aura. At this time, the dust settled and the dust dispersed. Sure enough, a cave big enough for two people to pass through was revealed. From the outside it was pitch black, and one could not even see their own fingers. This way of entering undoubtedly added a thick layer of mystery to North Korea. Xiao Su and Ji Linyang looked at each other and reached a tacit agreement. In the end, Guardian Cui and Elder Gui walked in front to lead the way, while Elder Zhua was left in the middle. It was said that this was for better communication. Ji Linyang walked beside Xiao Su and whispered, "This mechanism is the most difficult one in the Chiman escape technique. The mountain gate is made of thousands of kilograms of stone. Unless you know the specific way to open it, you won't be able to crack it from the outside." "What if it's you?" Xiao Su asked. Ji Linyang smiled. "Piece of cake." Xiao Su smiled faintly. "Very good." After everyone entered the cave, the mountain gate closed automatically. Elder Zhua was just about to remind everyone that there were torches on the mountain wall, but before he could open his mouth, the entire cave lit up. The fierce cavalry beside him had already raised their own torches and moved forward very quickly. They were well trained and walked very cautiously, knocking on the mountain wall from time to time. He also realized that there were so many people following him that they could form a small army. He was slightly surprised, but he quickly calmed down. Actually, on the way here, he knew that there were far more people than they appeared on the surface. Now that he saw these people, he confirmed his guess. On the way here, he also witnessed the world-famous fierce cavalry's ability to move, so he calmed down. This group of people was far more powerful than the elite soldiers trained in North Korea. Even if Turin and the others were flying in the sky, he would not be surprised. This group of people was a terrifying existence. However, it was also because he valued these people's abilities that he did everything possible to bring them in. Chu Qingyan looked at the tunnel and felt a sense of déjà vu. Jean Xian. Doesn't this look like the place where we were imprisoned before? At that time, she was accidentally captured by that group of arrogant Taoist priests and was imprisoned on a similar mountain path. That was also the first time she and Jean Xian met. Jean Xian nodded. "It seems like this place is easy to hide our tracks." "Mother, where are we going?" Little Kong, who had been playing along the way, finally remembered to ask this question. Chu Qingyan tilted her head and smiled at Little Kong, who was in Big Ice Cube's arms. "We're going to Jean Xian's house as guests." Little Kong instantly became excited, feeling that this dark tunnel was not so boring anymore. Father Chu and the retired emperor started to argue with each other again. "It seems that we haven't fought in the tunnel yet. Do you want to try? Interesting. Who's afraid of who? Come on." Thus, the sound of fists breaking through the air could be heard from behind. Everyone was already used to it and continued to walk forward calmly. In any case, these two old men would exchange blows everywhere they went. This tunnel was very long, and it was a staircase. After walking for more than an hour, they seemed to have walked through the tunnel. Just when everyone thought that this country was living underground, a white light finally appeared in front of them. Everyone was relieved. However, when they walked out, what appeared in front of them was a pool of water. It was neither big nor small, only about 3 feet long. "Where's the road? I say, you guys aren't playing with us, right?" Xiao waved his fan and walked forward to look at the small pool. He was a little disdainful. This was not even enough for him to grow a few lotus flowers. Elder Zhua smiled and said, "No rush, the road will come soon." As he spoke, he glanced at Protector Chui. Protector Chui followed the order and walked to a stalk of grass growing beside the pool. He squatted down and reached out to pull the grass up. Just when everyone thought that the grass was going to be uprooted, a miracle happened. The water in the pool suddenly receded and slowly, the entire pool was empty. Protector Chui jumped into the pool and touched the ground. Then, he used his strength to lift it up, revealing a hole that was as wide as a person. Everyone felt as if they were watching something magical. They could not help but mutter in their hearts. Just how mysterious was North Korea that they had to go through so much trouble just to enter. "Everyone, please." Protector Chui immediately went down after lifting the hole. Elder Zhua extended his hand and invited everyone. Bai Yutong and the others seemed to have found something fun and jumped in first. Turin and the others followed closely behind. Then Chu Qingyan and the others followed, leaving Hualing and the others to bring up the rear. After everyone went in and the lid was closed again, the dried-up pool miraculously surged with water again. Gradually, it returned to its previous state, as if nothing had happened. The hole under the pool was not the final path. They walked for nearly half a day until they reached a place similar to the water curtain cave. Only then were they told that they had reached the end. After passing through this water curtain, we will arrive at the town closest to our border. Everyone, please be patient. We will arrive soon, Elder Zhua said with an apologetic tone. However, these words did not make Chu Qingyan and the others feel relaxed. On the contrary, their gazes became more serious. However, they had already come this far. There was no turning back. However, no one knew what was waiting for them outside. At the same time, a pair of shoes stepped on the mountain gate that Chu Qingyan and the others had stopped at. It was a pair of men's boots. Strange. We followed them here, but they disappeared into thin air. A voice muttered to himself. Then a pair of shoes appeared. It was a girl's shoes, embroidered with beautiful hibiscus flowers. "It is indeed strange," the woman said as she touched her chin. "Why did you follow us again?" The man from before said with a headache. "The road leads to the sky. Why do you care which way I go?" The woman retorted. The man rolled his eyes. She really followed him wherever he went. Chapter 1550. What's with that expression of yours? The young girl put her hands on her hips, faintly angry. She was out of breath from chasing after him, and her fair cheeks were stained with a blush. Her light purple clothes were blown up by the mountain breeze and fluttered in the wind. Inadvertently, she was flirtatious. Higashio Motetsu's eyes flickered slightly as he leaned sideways against the mountain wall and casually said, "Didn't you say that the road is open and no one can control where you go? Then why do you care what expression I have?" That's right. The girl who had been relentlessly chasing after him for the past 2 years was undoubtedly Tao Tao. After saving his life, the benefactor who had shamelessly followed him around. He had a huge headache. She didn't want the money he gave her or the things he gave her, and only liked to follow him around blindly. Tao Tao also copied him and rolled her eyes. "Hey, what's with that attitude of yours?" Higashio Motetsu's eyes twitched as he couldn't help but open his mouth. Tao Tao proudly crossed her arms and looked at him. "Didn't I say that the road is open and no one can control where I go? So what attitude I have, it's none of your business." She returned the same words back to him. Higashio Motetsu's mouth twitched again. Okay. Whatever you say, you're right. Now, I dare to ask Miss Tao where you're going next so that I won't be an eyesore to you. Once he said that, Tao Tao's expression changed slightly, and the smile on her face disappeared. He was obviously chasing her away. Even if she could be thick-skinned, She was still a girl after all. No matter how thick-skinned she was, she couldn't be that thick-skinned. She laughed dryly and after hiding her awkwardness, she stubbornly said, "I'll go wherever I want to go. It's none of your business." Knowing that it was useless to say anything more to her, he didn't bother with her and closed his eyes to rest. Seeing that he no longer paid attention to her, Cao Cao was a little unhappy, but she knew that he had been on the road for the past 2 days and must be very tired, so she did not disturb him. She found a place to rest, yawned, and prepared to catch up on sleep. Higashio Motetsu was surprised by her quietness and couldn't help but open his eyes. He tilted his head to look for her, and saw that she had fallen asleep while leaning against a tree. He raised his eyebrows slightly. This girl seemed to be alive and kicking and seemed to have endless energy, but there were also times when she was tired. It could be seen that these 2 days of traveling had consumed all of her mental strength. He shook his head and took off his coat. He gently walked over and draped it over her body. Then he went back to sit down and rest. After the footsteps faded away, the corners of Cao Cao's mouth lifted. She knew that he wouldn't leave her alone. All these years, in order to catch up to him, she didn't dare to sleep deeply. She was afraid that he would disappear when she woke up, so she woke up when he approached her. But now, she could sleep peacefully. After waking up from her sleep, Cao Cao saw him fumbling around the mountain. She couldn't help walking over. "What are you doing?" "The people disappeared here, so I suspect that there is a mechanism here, but I haven't found it yet." Higashio Motetsu knew that she wouldn't give up so easily, so he didn't argue with her and just told her the truth. Cao Cao nodded. This explanation was very reasonable. But after he finished speaking, he retreated. He didn't plan on looking anymore, so he became even more curious. "Why aren't you looking anymore? If you don't have the ability, then you shouldn't take on this porcelain task. I never do useless work. Since you don't know how, then don't waste your energy." Higashio Motetsu moved back and walked to the side. Cao Cao hugged his clothes and followed him. Her head was filled with confusion. "You have some self-awareness. But aren't you looking for Qingyan and the others? You're giving up just like that? This isn't something you would do." Higashio Motetsu chuckled when he heard that. Not everything in this world needs to be done personally. Sometimes, you have to rely on your brain. He pointed at the person in his head and then teased, "Unfortunately you don't. TSK, TSK, TSK. Cao Cao snorted, mocking people whenever he didn't agree with her. Sure enough, this was his usual style. "Then may I ask, how are you going to rely on your brain?" She didn't believe that he didn't do anything, and the mechanism would open by itself. Obviously, this person didn't believe him. If it was any other time, he wouldn't be bothered. But today he was in the mood for leisure. In other words, having a silly girl to tease was a good way to pass the time. "Because someone will help us find the way." "How do you know?" "I know Xiao. He's a very reliable person. Others take 3 steps at a time, but he can see through it at a glance. He doesn't need to walk to know what's 10 steps away from him. He won't let himself and Qingyan and the others fall into a passive situation. That's why he dared to bring those people to explore alone. This proves that he has a backup plan. I didn't expect you to have such a high opinion of your love rival. I didn't know that you were such a practical person." Cao Cao was very surprised. Higashio Motetsu rolled his eyes at her. "Am I that kind of narrow-minded person? Besides, I'll only be convinced if I lose to someone like him. If the person that Qingyan likes is worse than me, wouldn't I lose face?" Cao Cao laughed lightly. Good. You're all right. In any case, I already know that your love rival is several times stronger than you. So just give up on that thought and follow this lady." Her joking words carried a bit of truth. Only she knew that in these past few years, she didn't dare to seriously confess to him. She was afraid that if she really did that, there really would be no way out for them. So she only dared to test him in jest. As expected, he thought that she was joking again and smiled wickedly. "Forget it. This kind of provocation won't work on this young master." She knew it would be like this. After sighing in her heart, she quickly cheered herself up. "All right." She shrugged and continued to ask, "Then what do you plan to do next? Aren't you going to find Qingyan?" Some time ago, the Moon Palace sect had a dispute with another sect. It had been quite big. When he received the news, he went out to deal with it. When he came back, he found that Qingyan had disappeared. Not only had she disappeared, everyone related to her had also left. She didn't forget the lonely expression on his face at that time. It was as if there was nothing left for him to remember. No matter how she tried to tease him, it was useless. Until he received the letter that Qingyan had sent someone to leave for him. Only then did he return to being the arrogant and insufferably arrogant Higashio Motetsu. At that time, she felt a deep pain in her heart. But she didn't dare to think too deeply about it. She was afraid that if she did, she would no longer have the motivation to persevere. Sometimes, when it was time to be smart, she was smart. When it was time to pretend to be stupid, she pretended to be stupid. Higashio Motetsu casually picked a blade of grass and put it in his mouth. One word: wait. Wait. She blinked in confusion. Wait for what? Higashio Motetsu gave her a look of disdain. Of course it's to wait for someone. You're so stupid. How did you live until now? Tao Tao's breath caught in her throat. She really couldn't argue with this scoundrel, otherwise her beauty would die early. Forget it. If he said to wait, then she would wait. In any case, as long as he didn't secretly run away, everything would be fine. Seeing that Tao Tao wasn't scared away by him, and was instead leisurely sitting on the ground, Higashio Motetsu rubbed his forehead. She really was a stubborn little girl. After he sighed, his eyes unconsciously curved. It was a pity that no one noticed, not even him. Chapter 1551. It was just as Elder Zhua and the rest had said. After passing through the water curtain and walking for a while, they arrived at the exit. White light illuminated the entrance of the cave. Everyone, who had not seen the sun for a long time, only felt a flash in front of their eyes. They suddenly saw the blue sky and white clouds. They had the illusion that there was a village at the end of the tunnel. However, this exit was a little unexpected. It was actually located halfway up the mountain. From afar, there was a large paddy field. Houses, cattle, and sheep could be seen everywhere. The land was flat, and the houses were upright. There were fertile fields, beautiful ponds, mulberry trees, and bamboo trees. The roads were crisscrossed, and chickens and dogs could be heard. However, if there was no unforeseen event, Chu Qingyan would have thought that she had walked into a paradise. Turin and the rest had just extinguished their torches, and walked out when more than 10 shining swords appeared from the side of the cave. Every move was a killing move, and they were merciless. Xiao Laiqi and the rest drew their weapons in a well-trained manner. Some of them protected their masters, while the rest went up and fought with the other party. The unforeseen event happened too quickly, and many people did not have time to react. Glutinous Rice Ball carried little Onkong on its back, and the other two took on the responsibility of guarding. They bared their teeth and guarded against the killers, occasionally helping Xiao Laiqi to eat. Chu Qingyan stood beside her big ice cube. After confirming that little Onkong was safe, she retracted her gaze from her son, and narrowed her eyes to look at these uninvited guests. These people were wearing white and blue shirts, dark blue trousers, and blue hats made of cloth on their heads. They had a very exotic style. They did not wear masks, as if they were not worried about being recognized. Their muscles were thick, and the long swords in their hands were powerful. Although their martial arts moves were simple, each move carried the power of thunder, and they could not be underestimated. What is going on? Xiao Su coldly glanced at Elder Zhua and the rest, as if as long as they hid something, he would not let them off so easily. Elder Gui cried out, "Young Master Chu, we don't know either. We haven't been back for many years." These words did not seem to be false. At that moment, one of the assassins shouted, "Zhua Haotian, I thought you were capable after coming back, but I didn't expect you to bring an outsider in. How dare you bring an outsider into the grudge between our two clans? Today, you will die without a burial ground." As soon as he finished speaking, the killers seemed to have gone mad. They started attacking everyone. This kind of suicidal method was not only because of personal grudges, but also because of the honor of protecting the country. Therefore, once the people were united and resisted together, their strength was astonishing. As soon as he finished speaking, assassins dressed in the same way kept appearing on the mountainside. Some of them were holding axes, long sabers, shovels, and all sorts of weapons. However, their attacks were very ruthless. Receiving the cold glances from Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su, Zhuo Haotian replied loudly and guiltily, "Looks like you're all from the Tranquil Moon sect. For so many years, you've been chasing after our young sect master. Now that we're back with our young sect master's people, these are all his friends. How can they be considered outsiders? Instead, it's you who are the guilty ones complaining first. Do you still have any reason?" The leader, a black-bearded man, laughed and sneered, "Zhuo Haotian, you old fart, your ability to twist words and force logic is really increasing day by day. Since your young sect master is back, it's good that we eliminate him. Let's see if your Sun clan will still submit to our Moon clan without a leader in the future." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone rushed forward. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes. "Take them down." Initially, the fierce cavalry had held back their strength in order to probe the other party's abilities. Now that they had received the order, they went all out. The situation quickly became intense, and the situation became one-sided. "Who are you people?" That black-bearded man saw that he had injured many of his brothers, and his attitude changed from arrogance to fear. Only then did he look at Xiao Su's group. Xiao Su looked at him coldly and did not reply. This kind of person had no right to speak to him. Black-bearded man had never been ignored like this before, and his embarrassment turned into anger. He raised his sword and slashed towards Xiao Su's direction. Xiao Su waved his sleeve, and it was as if black-bearded man had crashed into a wall. His entire body flew out without any warning. The force of the collision was the same as the force of the collision. He heavily smashed into the mountain wall and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, what shocked him more than his injury was Xiao Su's martial arts. Perhaps even their sect master was not his opponent. Chu Qingyan chuckled. Black-bearded man really overestimated himself. The big ice cube usually did not casually make a move. Otherwise, who knew how many people's hearts would have been shattered? As soon as black-bearded man fell, the people he had brought with him panicked and immediately helped him up. Xiao Su's move had caused the momentum of the crowd to dissipate. To Chu Qingyan and the rest, victory was already in their hands. But just as black-bearded man and the rest were about to be surrounded by the Xiao-Lai cavalry, a series of shouts suddenly came from not far away. Chu Qingyan frowned. Could it be that there was another wave of attacks? Just as that thought flashed through her mind, a rain of arrows fell from the sky, causing her heart to tremble. She protected her mother, Xining and the rest as they retreated. Glutinous rice ball, and the rest reacted even faster. They had already carried Xiao and Kong back into the cave to hide. At the same time, a group of people dressed in red and white similar to black-bearded man's clothes rushed over while shouting to kill. Protector Chui's eyes lit up. "Elder Zhuo, our people have arrived." When Elder Zhuo and Elder Gui saw it clearly, they immediately became excited. Black-bearded man and his men had already revealed their weakness, and were preparing to retreat. Now that they saw their reinforcements, they made a prompt decision, and quickly fled under the cover of the rain of arrows. "Don't chase," Xiao Su ordered coldly. It was their first time here, and they were not familiar with the terrain. It would not be difficult for black-bearded man to escape, so they did not need to waste their energy chasing after him. Those so-called allies that Protector Chui had mentioned instantly surrounded them. "Elder Zhuo, you guys are finally willing to come back. The outside world must be very exciting. I think you guys are so happy that you forgot your home. Back then, when I asked you to follow us, you guys were unwilling. Now if we did not save you, I'm afraid you guys would have already died in the hands of the Yu clan. You guys really overestimate yourselves." A burly man with thick eyebrows walked out from the crowd. His clothes were even more noble, and it could be seen that he was the leader of this group. However, his words were filled with obvious hostility and contempt. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su looked at each other. Could it be that the wolves had just left, and now the tigers and lions had come? At this moment, a leisurely voice interrupted them. Yo, where did you guys come from? How arrogant. Can't you see that we're dealing with those people? If it weren't for your appearance, those people would have been taken down long ago. I haven't even loosened my muscles yet, and you guys are already stirring up trouble? As soon as Xiao Yao finished speaking, the people behind the burly man with thick eyebrows immediately lit up their bows and arrows. The sharp tips of the arrows pointed straight at Chu Qingyan's group. Chapter 1552. Pointing his sharp arrow at Chu Qingyan's group, the thick-browed man looked at Xiao Yao provocatively. Kid, you're still young and inexperienced. Don't overestimate your abilities. Seeing that his little fan was being bullied, Father Chu rolled up his sleeves to teach them a lesson, but he was stopped by the retired emperor. This kind of small fry isn't worth fighting. Let's wait and see. The retired emperor was the best at playing tricks back then, so Father Chu rolled up his sleeves without much thought. At this time, Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su didn't step forward. Instead, they looked at each other quietly, then looked at Elder Zhuo's group and said in a low voice that only they could hear. If you can't solve this matter, then there's nothing to talk about. Xiao Su's words made Elder Zhuo and the others tremble. They originally thought that with Xiao Su's strength, they would definitely be able to take down the thick-browed man and the others. They didn't expect that Xiao Su's group was so smart that they seemed to see through their plan of sitting on top of the mountain and watching the tigers fight, and directly push them out. This was called going for wool and coming home shorn. Sure enough, people from the imperial family couldn't be underestimated. Elder Zhuo immediately smiled at Xiao Su's group, then turned to the thick-browed man and said, Lu Zhang, don't go too far. Do you know who we brought back this time? Lu Zhang smiled disdainfully. Who cares who you brought back? Outsiders who trespass into the territory will be killed without mercy. You're doing this knowingly. Even if I kill you here, no one will say anything. Protector Cui stepped forward and snorted. Lu Zhang, look at who we brought back first before you make a fuss. Lu Zhang originally planned to shoot them dead right here, but hearing their confident tone, he couldn't help but be a little skeptical. Who did you bring back? Elder Zhuo walked to Jin Xian's side and bowed respectfully, then turned to Lu Zhang and said, We've searched for so many years and finally found the young sect master. Young sect master? Lu Chang was stunned. From the beginning until now, he had not looked at these people directly. His gaze immediately swept over to Jin Xian. The handsome and tall youth's facial features were indeed 80% similar to the late sovereign's. Only then did his suspicions lessen a bit. That's right, Lu Chang. Why aren't you ordering your men to put away their bows? Could it be that you want to go against your superiors? As if he had gained confidence, Elder Zhuo straightened his back and criticized. Zhuo Haotian, do you think I'll believe your one-sided story? Everything will have to wait until we go back and verify it with the high priest. Although Lu Chang's mouth was still unyielding, he had already ordered his men to put away the bows and arrows as he spoke. It could be seen that he still had reservations about this matter. Elder Zhuo immediately looked at Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan to ask for credit, but they ignored him. Since we dared to come back, what is there to be afraid of? Bring us to see the high priest. Elder Gui smiled coldly. Lu Chang wanted to say something, but when he saw Jin Xian, he swallowed his words. Forget it. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Thus, with a wave of his hand, he ordered his men to open up a path and led the way out. Jin Xian glanced at his master, his eyes filled with inquiry. After his master nodded, he followed him. Glutinous Riceball and the other two who had been hiding in the cave saw that the crisis was over and strutted out with their little master on their backs. The Ri clan people did not see the three of them before, and now that they appeared, they were almost scared away. Boss Lu, you see? Lu Chang was a little dissatisfied when he saw their cowardice, but when he turned around and saw the three huge snow wolves, he almost dropped the weapon in his hand. However, when he saw the little boy sitting on top of them, as well as Elder Zhuo and the others' expressions, it was obvious that they were traveling with them. He suppressed the fear in his heart, otherwise he would be looked down upon later. Elder Zhuo looked at the fierce three and little Nkong, and his heart was filled with endless emotions. Finally, someone was scared, so they were not alone. Father Chu looked at Lu Chang and the others with disdain. Cowards! By Yutong and the other two. We are fierce and cruel? Which eye of yours saw that? Brothers and sisters, let's go. Soon, The group of people went down the mountain and walked into the fields and countryside. Chu Qingyan had been paying attention to the surrounding environment and realized that the villagers, who were dressed no differently from Sichuan, were very respectful towards Lu Chang and the others. She had to admit that religious beliefs had an influence on these people. Actually, this is the method that the people above use to control the people below. They subtly influence the lives of the people. This kind of belief exists in every country, but some are not obvious. Xiao saw what she was thinking and explained. Chu Qingyan sighed. It's just that this kind of belief is completely used to control the people here. It's simply too scary. Xiao did not comment. At this time, Lu Chang led the group to the entrance of a village, where 2 carriages were parked. Lu Chang had just held his breath, and now he could finally let it out. He pointed at the carriage and smiled contemptuously at Chu Qingyan and the others. There are only 2 carriages, one is for you, the rest is up to you. Sima Jun looked at the carriage tracks on the ground, and could tell that there were more than 2 carriages parked there. This was obviously making things difficult for them. It was a pity that Lu Chang did not look at who was in front of him. Xiao gave Mu Ling a look, and Mu Ling understood. With a wave of his hand, more than 10 subordinates appeared out of thin air. Get to work. With that he disappeared. Lu Chang did not understand what they were going to do. He was about to question Elder Zhua and the others, but Mu Ling quickly gave him the answer. Because the ground trembled slightly, and very quickly, Xiaolai's cavalry returned with more than 10 thick trees. Mu Ling glanced at the 2 carriages in disdain. How dare they let their masters ride on such trash? He would let them see what a real carriage was. In the blink of an eye, the trees were cut into wooden planks of different lengths, and 2 or 3 people assembled them together. Not long after, the shape of the carriage appeared. Not only was it large, but it was also very sturdy, and looked very comfortable. Not only Lu Chang, but even Elder Zhua and the others were stunned. But what shocked them even more was yet to come. Turin, who had left at some point, returned with more than 10 horses. Where did you get these horses? Lu Chang could not help but ask. Turin said indifferently, we passed by the village just now. You stole them? Lu Chang's gaze suddenly became unfriendly. Turin sneered. I used something to exchange for them. What kind of people were Xiaolai's cavalry? They had extremely strong detection abilities. When they first arrived at an unfamiliar place, the first thing they did was to observe the terrain and pay attention to their surroundings. As long as they wanted to, there was nothing they could not do. Lu Chang smiled embarrassedly. At this time, the horses were already tied up, and the 6 or 7 carriages were assembled. Xining and the others spread the blankets inside, and the spacious and comfortable carriages made their grand appearance. Father Chu raised his chin and said to the stunned Lu Chang, we don't need your carriages. With that, Father Chu helped Mother Chu into the carriage, and did not even look at Lu Chang and the others, looking very disdainful. Chu Qingyan looked at Mu Ling, Turin, and the others with admiration. What a slap in the face. Chapter 1553. Although this was a border town, it wasn't far from the stronghold that Lu Zhang had mentioned. Chu Qingyan and Xiao exchanged a glance, and both of them had an idea of what was going on. Because they were dubious of Jean Xian's identity, and the skills that Mu Ling and the others had displayed were simply too admirable and terrifying. Lu Zhang was more cautious in front of everyone. Although he always acted high and mighty, he didn't take the initiative to look for trouble. This way, Chu Qingyan felt more at ease and treated these people as if they didn't exist. Wow, what kind of tree is this? Its fruit is half red and half green? Father Chu leaned against the car window, his eyes flashing with a strange light. It's probably half ripe. The Emperor Emeritus rubbed his chin in response. Lu Zhang and the others twitched their mouths and endured. What kind of animal is that? It doesn't have any hair on its head. Father Chu turned into a questioning baby again. The Emperor Emeritus glanced at it. It's probably too old and bald. Lu Zhang, Elder Zhua, and the others twitched their mouths and continued to endure. What kind of flower is that? Why are all the leaves falling off? Chu Qian's father asked again. Before the Emperor Emeritus could speak, Lu Zhang couldn't take it anymore. He was afraid that this person would come up with some random answer. That wasn't half-ripe just now. It's our red passion fruit, a kind of medicinal fruit. The red part can be used to ward off snakes and insects, and the green part can be used to detoxify poisons. That barefooted beast has never had any hair on its head since it was young. The one just now wasn't even a year old. How is it too old to be bald? It's not at all. And the flower didn't lose all its leaves. It doesn't have any leaves to begin with. You don't know anything, so don't judge it so casually. Lu Zhang felt like smoke was coming out of his head. He was about to explode from anger. Elder Zhua and the others silently nodded in their hearts. However, Xiao Su and the others were very powerful. It was obvious that they were very protective of their father-in-law and grandfather. Therefore, they didn't dare to speak up and tell the two of them, for fear of being beaten up. They all had the same thought. So angry, but still have to maintain a smile. Now that Lu Chang had spoken, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, after hearing the lion's roar, Father Chu dug his ears and nodded. Then he turned to the retired emperor and said, "These things are so weird. They don't have any fur or leaves, and the fruits are so ugly." The retired emperor nodded in agreement. Lu Chang. "So what's with that tree over there? Why does little Yi look so much like a caterpillar?" Mr. Chu asked again. The retired emperor frowned and looked at it carefully for a while. Then he gave an answer. "Perhaps this tree is sick and has a moth." Lu Chang. "It was clearly a perfectly fine tree, all right? It's just that the leaves look like worms. Was there anything wrong with that? What did they take the audience with the high priest for? Sightseeing?" However, as if they didn't notice that some people were about to explode in anger, Father Chu and the Emperor Emeritus continued to talk as if there was no one else present. Chu Qingyan stifled her laughter. Is it really okay for father and imperial grandfather to act like this? What if these people fly into a rage out of humiliation? Xiao Su's voice drifted into his ears. "I don't think they would dare." Turin, Hualing, and the others walked on either side. Just them alone was enough to deter others. Not to mention by Yutong's group of 3 who were each lying on a carriage, occasionally flashing their claws. No one dared to move against the 2 old men. Chu Qingyan thought about it and agreed. Who told these people to act like they were so noble and they were ants? She felt that there was no need to bicker with these frogs at the bottom of the well. However, if father and imperial grandfather wanted to have some fun, she would let them do as they pleased. Thus, in these 3 days, Lu Chang and the others suffered the ravages of Father Chu and the Emperor Emeritus' voice. They dared to be angry, but they didn't dare say anything. This was because as long as they showed the slightest bit of dissatisfaction, those 3 snow wolves would first reveal a sinister green light towards them. For safety's sake, they should continue to pretend to be deaf and mute. Very quickly, the group arrived at the town where the stronghold was located. Lu Chang took Elder Zhua and the other 2 to see the high priest first and settled Xiao Su and the others in a courtyard. He even left some people behind to protect them, but in fact, it was more like they were there to keep an eye on them. Xiao Su, Chu Qingyan, Jin Xian, Xiao Yao, Sima Jun, Ji Linyang, and the others gathered in the room. "I say, Jin Xian, what kind of clan are you from? Why do you act like you're 15,000 and act like you're the most powerful?" Xiao Yao finally had a chance to vent the words he had been holding back the entire time. Jin Xian sighed when he heard this. Because they grew up in North Korea and haven't seen the world. They always think that the outside world isn't as good as here, nor is it as prosperous and powerful as here. Moreover, they're very xenophobic, so it's hard to avoid their arrogant attitude. To put it bluntly, they're frogs at the bottom of a well. Sima Jun shook her head. From what she had seen and heard along the way, she realized that this country was many years behind Sichuan. Although it was rich in exotic flowers and herbs, and some things were quite novel that couldn't be seen outside, whether it was in terms of productivity or weapons, it was far behind the outside world. Chu Qingyan nodded. Sima Jun was right. Their bows and arrows were the most ancient style, and the tips of the arrows weren't sharp at all. They could hurt people, but it was still a little difficult to kill with one arrow. That may be the case, but don't underestimate it. For a country to be able to survive for hundreds of years without falling, there must be something extraordinary about it. Perhaps there are many things that aren't what we see on the surface. Xiao Su tapped the table lightly with a solemn expression. Ji Linyang agreed. That's right. I think the same as Brother Xiao. The fact that they can keep this place a secret for so long without outsiders knowing is enough to prove that they're not as simple as they seem. The two's words caused everyone to ponder deeply. Then tell me, are these people sincerely looking for Jin Xian to be the young sect master? Xiao Yao was the first to ask a question. I don't think so. Jin Xian took over the question himself and frowned. They're hiding everything from me. When I asked them about the current situation of the Sun Flame sect, they always gave me the runaround, saying that I'll know when I come back. So I think there's something fishy about this. These people give me the feeling that they're hiding a bellyful of evil. Perhaps they're already preparing to attack us. Chu Qingyan rubbed her chin and narrowed her eyes coldly. Why do you think so? Xiao Yao was slightly surprised. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows slightly, and the corners of his mouth curved into a mocking smile. They left us here alone, so it's obvious that they're going to meet that high priestess and prepare a secret plan. As expected, they'll make their move tonight. Sima Jun asked in surprise, really? Ji Linyang took his wife's hand and smiled knowingly. Looks like we shouldn't sleep too deeply tonight. I believe the mystery will be revealed soon. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan exchanged glances and saw a storm of blood in each other's eyes. Everyone dispersed. The moon was high in the sky, the time for demons and monsters to appear. Chapter 1554. Late at night was the time for dreams, but it was also the time for thieves to appear. Elder Zhua Luchang and the others who were supposed to be searching for people suddenly appeared at the entrance of the house. The Sunblaze sect people guarding the house quickly approached them, not bothering to conceal their voices, as if they were not worried about being heard by the people inside. Reporting to Boss Lu, they have already been drugged by our bewitching medicine. They won't wake up until tomorrow, said one of the thugs. Lu Chang and Elder Zhua looked at each other, and could not help but reveal a satisfied expression. Lu Chang waved his hand. Take them away, leave no one behind. Yes. Not long after, Chu Qingyan and the others were taken to the carriage and sent to the secret stronghold. Elder Zhua, aren't these people quite capable? Why are they so easily tricked? Protector Chui looked at Xiao Yao and the others who were being carried away in front of their eyes and said in a mocking tone. Elder Gui laughed contemptuously. A powerful dragon can't suppress a local snake. No matter how powerful they are outside. Aren't they still at our mercy once they're here? Protector Chui smiled proudly. Elder Gui is right. We've been suppressed to the point of not daring to say anything along the way. Now we can finally hold our heads high. Elder Zhua stroked his beard and said to the two, now is not the time to be happy. It won't be too late to wait until we get the thing. The two cupped their hands and said yes. As for Xiao Yao, who was passing by them, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, but when he looked carefully, it was as if nothing had happened. The next day, when Chu Qingyan and the others woke up, they were in a brightly lit hall. There were people standing on both sides, and all of them were men and women wearing red and white clan uniforms. These people all had sabers, swords and axes at their waists. Their faces were smeared with red stripes. On one side of the wall hung a sun flag, and on the other hung the fangs of either a tiger or a lion. It looked somewhat terrifying. What attracted Chu Qingyan's attention was the old woman sitting at the head of the table. She was holding a jade walking stick with a skull in her hand. Around her neck was a necklace made of fangs, and on her head was a hairband made of silk. On the right side of her head was a few colorful feathers. She was expressionless, but there was something strange about her. Lu Zhang and Elder Zhua were sitting right below her. If she hadn't guessed that this person might be the so-called high priestess that they had mentioned before, she would have thought that she was a witch. It was quite scary. At this moment, the so-called high priest spoke. These are the people you were talking about? It doesn't look like much. The moment he spoke, his tone was filled with disdain and frivolity. However, his voice was like a blunt axe sawing wood, extremely hoarse and unpleasant to the ears. Chu Qingyan sneered in her heart. At this moment, Jean Xian looked at Elder Zhuo coldly. What do you mean by this? Protector Cui, who was sitting beside Elder Zhuo, seemed to be looking down at them from the vantage point of a victor. Young sect master, I'm very sorry that we lied to you. We didn't bring you back to inherit the position of sect master, but we needed you to help us achieve our goal. I've long known that you guys are not good people. Xiao spat, but he sat on the ground weakly, unable to move at all. He asked in surprise, what did you do to us? Lu Zhang laughed. We just used the cultivation dissipation powder to dissolve your martial arts and drugged you, so that you won't be able to move for a short period of time. Despicable, shameless. Sima Jun cursed. Xiao Kong also followed suit and said, Northern nose toothless. Xiao Su frowned slightly, Kong. Xiao Kong immediately stuck out his tongue. He knew that his father didn't like him like this, so he immediately apologized sincerely. Mother said that we can't always tell the truth. We have to leave some face for others. The truth is always very hurtful. Xiao Yao, Sima Jun and the rest couldn't help but laugh out loud. Xiao Su also revealed a slight smile. However, these people couldn't take it anymore, especially the high priest. Cut off this little brat's tongue first. As soon as he finished speaking, someone stepped forward to execute him. Just at this moment, a cold and stern voice sounded. Let's see who dares. As soon as the voice fell, his aura became obvious, immediately intimidating everyone present, causing the few thugs to not dare to step forward. Xiao Kong really wanted to kiss his father. How great! The high priest was also stunned by Xiao Su's pressure, and only then did he look at him in the eye. His aura was like a rainbow, although his appearance was slender and tall, but he always felt that his body seemed to be brewing with endless power, making people unable to underestimate him. A child's words carry no harm. As adults, you are too serious. The Grand Emperor rolled his eyes at them. What a bunch of petty people. Furthermore, his little great-grandson didn't say anything wrong. Did this world not allow people to speak the truth? The anger in her chest was suppressed by Xiao Su's aura, and coupled with the fact that she had missed the best opportunity to put on a show of strength, the high priest immediately calmed down. She couldn't be so easily affected by a little child who hadn't even grown hair yet, so she turned a blind eye to Xiao Su's words just now. All of you leave. Since he's a guest from afar, we should give him some face. Only then can we show the magnanimity of our Sunblaze sect. The high priest said in a hoarse voice. Heh, he had already drugged and kidnapped someone, yet he still had the cheek to talk about face and magnanimity. Chu Qingyan and the rest felt that this person's ability to reverse right and wrong was not bad. At least not something that ordinary people could do. The flickering candlelight in the hall finally illuminated that face. Jean Xian stared in a daze. The unbearable past buried deep in his memories suddenly jumped out and played out in front of his eyes. Fresh blood slowly dyed Jean Xian's eyes red. He raised his eyes and spoke word by word. I recognize you, High Priest Fu Hong. The high priest looked at Jean Xian and chuckled hoarsely. I never thought that young sect master would still remember me. I'm very honored. Jean Xian's smile did not reach his eyes. How could I dare to forget? That year, my mother knelt in front of you and begged you to save us. It's fine if you didn't save us, but we had forced you to do so. However, you actually leaked our whereabouts. Although you didn't personally kill my mother, you still have a share in this blood feud. The high priest was a little shocked. The thin and weak young boy from that year had returned after more than 10 years. He had actually grown so much that no one could ignore him. She gently coughed to hide the shock in her eyes. Her gaze was devoid of any warmth as she said, You can't blame me for this. You can only say that your Morong family brought this upon yourselves. Is that so? Jean Xian's eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at her. It's a pity that you brought this upon yourself as well. Now that you've fallen to this point, I'm sure you haven't been living well either. How dare you? Lu Chong angrily rebuked. If you continue to spout such arrogant words, don't blame us for being impolite. Jean Xian ignored this clown and said to the high priest with contempt. What exactly do you want? I haven't returned for more than 10 years. You've gone through so much trouble. What exactly do you want from me? Chapter 1555. As soon as Jin Xian said this, Chu Qingyan and the others all turned to look at the high priest. The high priestess chuckled softly. Her voice was a little creepy. She got up and walked slowly to Jin Xian with the help of her skeletal staff. She looked down at him and said, "Do you really want to know? Even if you don't tell me now, I'll find out sooner or later." Jin Xian's gaze was distant and fearless. The high priest nodded approvingly. "You're indeed her son." Just as everyone was trying to guess who the high priest was referring to was, the high priest's tone changed and became sinister again. "Morong boy, what we want is a secret that you're carrying on you. It's about the whereabouts of the Sunblaze sect's treasure." Treasure? Everyone was shocked. Jin Xian was stunned. He then stared at the high priest with raised brows. "When I left North Korea, I didn't bring anything with me. You've got the wrong person. Morong boy, it's normal that you don't know. Only the successor of the Sunblaze sect will have this item. You don't need to bring it with you. It's already been there since you were 1 year old," the high priest said confidently. Chu Qingyan raised her brows and sneered. "How can you be so sure that he's the successor of the Sunblaze sect?" Without waiting for the high priest to answer, Elder Zhua stepped forward and replied, "Let's not talk about anything else first. The young sect master's appearance is 80% similar to the sect master's. It's just that it can't be faked. Furthermore, we have our own treasures that can distinguish the real from the fake. It seems that these people have something that they don't know about." However, this was not the main point. Chu Qingyan's gaze moved away from the high priest and landed on Elder Zhua. She looked up and smiled. "So you've been lying to us from the beginning. When we were in the Sichuan, you should have already sent out a signal to inform Lu Zhang and the others. Then you put on that show together." At this point, both sides had already shed all pretenses of cordiality. There was nothing left to hide. Elder Zhua stroked his beard and readily admitted, "That's right, we originally wanted to trick the young sect master back, but you guys interfered, so we had to change our plan. It's a pity that you guys call yourselves the smartest people in Sichuan in vain. But weren't you still fooled by us?" "Is that so?" Chu Qingyan smiled meaningfully. Elder Zhua felt that her smile was a little strange, but they were already fish on the chopping board, at the mercy of others, so he did not take it to heart. He turned to Jin Xian and said, "There's a mark on your back. It's the image of a key. As long as you follow the image and create the key, you'll be able to open the door to the treasury. Hidden inside are the weapons and jewels that have been passed down for generations in the Sunblaze sect. It's enough to revitalize our entire Sunblaze sect." "That's right. With this treasure, why should we be afraid of the Moon Clan? Sooner or later, we'll make them pay for the humiliation they've inflicted on us." Protector Chui's face was full of anger. Jin Xian didn't know that there was such a mark on his back, and it had been there for nearly 20 years. It was simply too shocking. At this moment, "Wait a minute. Don't tell me that you've already been defeated by that whatever Moon Clan? That the Sunblaze sect is no longer what it was in the past? That you've been hiding here and they're like stray cats and dogs, and that this is your hiding place? And that for more than 10 years, you've placed all your hopes on that treasure in an attempt to use it to make a comeback?" Xiao pieced together the facts from their words and his own observations. It had to be said that his ability to observe people's expressions and inference was really top-notch. Because someone flew into a rage out of humiliation. "Who do you think you are? Do you have the right to judge the matters of our Sunblaze sect?" Lu Chang angrily pointed at him. If not for the high priest's instructions, he would have slashed him with his blade. Xiao chuckled. "As expected, I guessed correctly. You bunch of greedy, lazy and immoral thieves who only want to rely on external help and never think of your own efforts. You deserve to be trapped here for the rest of your lives." The high priest leaned on his walking stick and said coldly, "So what if you're right? We've already waited for the key to open the treasury. Do we still have to worry about not being able to revitalize the clan? As long as there are results, the process doesn't matter at all." "The process doesn't matter?" Chu Qingyan raised her eyes that were as cold as ice. "So you can disregard other people's lives and think of ways to capture them when you need them, and kick them away when you don't need them? If this is the way your religion does things, I feel that it's a blessing for the people to be destroyed like this. Protector Lu Chang, Chui and the others were enraged by her words. Protector Chui turned to the high priest and asked for instructions. Since the young sect master has been captured, we can take the key from him. The others can be executed on the spot to prevent them from ruining our plans. The high priest was also enraged by Chu Qingyan's words. However, she had to consider Elder Zhuo's previous request after all. She suppressed her anger and said to him, "You said earlier that you would spare their lives. Why?" Elder Zhuo was also very angry, but he did not forget his original intention. He immediately said, "These people's identities are not ordinary, but we're too far away from Sichuan and can't use their identities for the time being. However, they have an elite troop called the Fierce Cavalry. If we can control them, then we'll have such a strong military force at our disposal. It'll be like adding wings to a tiger. When the time comes and we have the treasury, we'll be invincible in North Korea." These words moved everyone. After all, Lu Chang, Protector Chui, Elder Gui, and the others had seen the power of the Fierce Cavalry with their own eyes, so they all agreed with Elder Zhuo's words. Moreover, compared to death, sometimes living was worse than dying. The high priest nodded and said meaningfully, "Since that's the case, let's keep them alive for now. If we can use them, that would be the best." He had checked these people's weapons. They were more lethal than any of their Sunblaze sects or even the Tranquil Moon sect's weapons. He was glad that they had planned carefully to hide from these people, which was why they could take them down when they were unprepared. Otherwise, it was hard to imagine how great their chances of victory would be if they fought head-on. "Control us? How do you plan to control us?" A cold voice rang out. Lu Chang and the others were just planning their wishful thinking when they heard this. They did not think too much and directly said, "Of course we'll use poison. When the centipede scatters and the poison takes effect, you'll be better off dead. At that time, you'll definitely kneel and beg us to give you the antidote. No matter how great your background is or how noble your identity is, you'll still become dogs under our feet." Haha. Lu Chang threw his head back and laughed loudly. Before he could finish laughing, he suddenly screamed and fell straight to the ground. There was even a sharp sword in his chest. This unforeseen event happened too suddenly. Before Elder Zhuo and the others could react, they saw the people who should have been lying on the ground unable to move stand up one by one. The atmosphere immediately became strange. Chapter 1556. Those who dared to threaten me have already reported themselves to the underworld. Xiao Su stood up, and his black robe fluttered despite the lack of wind. In an instant, his aura filled the entire hall. The younger ones were so afraid that they didn't dare to look him in the eye. "You." Before Elder Zhuo could finish speaking, Chu Qingyan and the others had already stood up and patted the dust off their clothes. It was as if they had just gone for a stroll somewhere. Their expressions were natural and leisurely, and they didn't look like prisoners at all. "What about you? What about me?" Xiao took out a folding fan from his waist and opened it with a whoosh. He covered his face with the fan, revealing a pair of mesmerizing eyes. "We were supposed to play along with you guys, but we couldn't help it. That's why we ended the scene early." "That's right. You guys are too uncreative. The moment you came up, you either wanted to beat us up or kill us. You have no professional ethics at all. Shouldn't you be looking for your treasures as soon as possible? You guys are too dilly-dallying. I really don't want to see you bunch of idiots embarrass yourselves here." Sima Jun looked at the people present with disdain, then stretched out a finger and shook it. Guardian Chui said in shock, "That's not right. Weren't you already drugged? Are you referring to that thing that's soaked in water and drunk as tea?" Ji Linyang asked in a gentle and refined manner. Then he replied in an incomparably gentle and refined manner, "I'm sorry, but to us it's really just tea." Elder Zhuo was even more shocked. He looked at Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan in disbelief. "How did you know that we were going back to get drugged?" Jean Xian, who had been silent, said, "It's very simple. You were very anxious when you brought me back, but once we arrived in North Korea, your attitude changed. According to what you said, you should have taken me directly to see the high priest. Unfortunately, you didn't. This doesn't make sense. Elder Zhua nodded. It seems that there's a flaw here. Flaw? Chu Qingyan shook her head and smiled. You guys are full of flaws. It's not just this place. Elder Gui was a bit indignant. Where else? They thought that they had done a flawless job. Chu Qingyan said indifferently. The ambush at the cave entrance. You didn't expect it. I've obviously interrupted your plan. Based on the fact that the Sun Moon Clan and the Sun Moon Clan are like fire and water, Lu Zhang should have pursued the Sun Moon Clan, and not simply chased them away. This is very suspicious. Therefore, we guess that Lu Zhang's original target wasn't the Sun Moon Clan. However, we only found out the reason today. So it was here. The appearance of the Moon Clan was indeed unexpected, but I didn't want to be the catalyst for you to see through our plan. Elder Zhua sighed. Sima Jun chuckled. Haha, did you think that we started suspecting you from the moment you entered North Korea? Isn't it? Protector Chui asked unhappily. Xiao Yao waved his fan and looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. It was even earlier than this. When you appeared in the palace, my elder brother and sister-in-law suspected you. Except for Jean Xian's identity, to be honest, we didn't believe much of what you said. Protector Chui was impulsive. When he met Xiao Yao's provocative gaze, he couldn't hold it in anymore. However, he was suppressed by Elder Zhua's gaze. Elder Zhua was interested in their words. He didn't seem as timid as before. It was as if he had straightened his back and looked at Chu Qingyan and the others. Although our plan wasn't flawless, it wasn't that easy to find a flaw in it. I'm very curious. How did you see through it? Chu Qingyan smiled faintly. How can people like us, who are used to scheming and plotting, not see through hypocrisy and hypocrisy? You attacked Jean Xian, and my child the moment you appeared. I can tell that your character isn't very good. Although you said that Jean Xian was your young sect leader, your eyes never showed any respect for him. Your acting was also too superficial. In North Korea, you were hesitant about your clan's matters. We knew that you were hiding something. Do you think we would believe people who we didn't know the ins and outs of? Moreover, she looked at Elder Zhua and the others. The sarcasm in her eyes made them unable to hide. Outsiders are not allowed to interfere in internal conflicts like yours. However, you didn't object to our participation. I believe that your original purpose was to take Jean Xian away. However, you changed your mind when you saw us. If you didn't have a guilty conscience, you wouldn't have violated the rules of your country. After all, the reason why your country is so mysterious is that outsiders are not allowed to set foot in it. Elder Zhua's face turned red from her analysis. It wasn't that she was too good at it, but that she was using it to make them useless. Chu Qingyan didn't care about the others' expressions after she finished speaking. She turned to the person beside her and said with a smile, Big Ice Cube, what do you think of my explanation? Xiaosu looked down at her. There was no longer any hostility in his eyes. They were unbelievably gentle. He raised a hand to pat her head and smiled. Very good. Everyone felt as if they had been fed a mouthful of dog food without warning. Sima Jun turned her head and threw herself into Ji Linyang's arms. She whimpered, The dog food is so disgusting. Ji Linyang patted her back gently. It's okay. We have dog food too. Jean Xian held Xining's hand. Father Chu hugged Mother Chu's shoulders. Xiao Yao, Hualing, and the other single dogs wanted to dig their eyes out. It was too painful. They were being fed dog food left and right. This group of people boasted shamelessly and didn't take the Sunblaze sect seriously. However, they had to admit that they didn't fall for the trap. The high priest was infuriated. He was about to order people to arrest them, but before he could do so, a group of people had already rushed in from outside. Weren't those the so-called fierce cavalry who had been drugged and locked up? With the fierce cavalry's powerful combat ability, these people weren't their match at all. In addition, Hualing and the other single dogs had nowhere to vent their anger, so they vented it all on this group of people. The Sunblaze sect people were simply hung up and beaten. Soon the high priest Elder Zhua and the others were subdued. Xiaosu waved his sleeves and sat at the head of the table. Chu Qingyan sat beside him. The others lined up on either side. Every dog has its day. Today it's my day. The people who had been abusing their power earlier were now prisoners kneeling on the ground. You bunch of foreigners invading our North Korea. One day, you will be chased out. The high priest's voice was hoarse. It was as unpleasant as a male duck. Chu Qingyan chuckled. You brought us in. Don't try to shirk your responsibility. All right, Hualing, gag her mouth. It's too unpleasant. The high priest, who had always been high and mighty, was treated like this. His eyes turned red with anger. He was about to curse when his mouth was gagged. Upon closer inspection, it was actually someone's broken sock. The high priest's eyes widened and he fainted from anger. Chu Qingyan ignored this person. She looked at Elder Zhua and said calmly, Actually, the Sunblaze sect has already declined. Tell us, what are you hiding from us? Chapter 1557. Elder Zhua saw that his men were either captured or killed, and understood that the situation was hopeless. In addition, he had interacted with Chu Qingyan during this period of time, and was very clear of these people's capabilities, so he did not make any more desperate attempts. Since things have come to this, there's nothing left to hide. At this point, Elder Zhua ignored Protector Cui and Elder Gui's advice and slowly revealed the truth. It turned out that Sect Master Morong favored his concubine, and neglected his wife was a scheme of the Tranquil Moon sect. Their goal was to make Sect Master Morong lose the hearts of the people first, then use that concubine to steal the Morong family's secrets, which were some of the Sunblaze sect's defensive secrets, and then hand them over to the Tranquil Moon sect. Nobody could stop the Tranquil Moon sect from entering the Sun Clan's territory, exterminating the Morong family, heavily injuring the Sunblaze sect, and taking over the Sun Clan's territory. Back then, Jin Xian and his mother were chased away and escaped the disaster. However, the Tranquil Moon sect did not get the Sunblaze sect's treasure, and suspected that the key was with Jin Xian, so they sent people to hunt him down. The people left behind by the Sunblaze sect, namely the High Priest and Elder Zhua, brought their remaining subordinates to hide, searching for Jin Xian while guarding against the Tranquil Moon sect, and lived a life of hiding. Later, they found out that Jin Xian had escaped from North Korea, so they sent Elder Zhua and the others to search for him. When they returned this time, only the 3 of them were left. The others had all died in the hands of the Tranquil Moon sect's people. Elder Zhua and the others had lured Jin Xian back for the sake of the secret of his treasure trove. Once they obtained the treasure trove, they could revive the Sunblaze sect and take back what originally belonged to them. Then they could rush to the Moon Clan for revenge. Unfortunately, before they could do all this, Xiao appeared halfway and bit the gold. They even thought of a scheme on top of a scheme to coerce Xiao, Chu Qingyan, and the others to do things for them. Who knew that in the end, they went for wool and came home shorn. Elder Zhua's confession made everyone feel a little incredulous. Just relying on these people to compete with a powerful sect, they were overestimating themselves. However, what was even more shocking was that the Sunblaze sect had already become an empty shell with no future. Mr. Chu turned his head and patted Jin Xian on the shoulder. He said regretfully, Jin Xian, there's nothing left when you come back. Why don't we go back? We still have a lot of delicious food and fun things at home. Unlike here, it's so shabby and not fun at all. All right. Jin Xian did not have much affection for this place to begin with. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to put an end to his past, he would never have set foot in North Korea. To him, this place had become a nightmare. However, when Jin Xian agreed, Elder Zhua shook his head anxiously. Young sect master, you cannot leave. The hope of the Sunblaze sect is on you. If you leave, then the Sun Clan will really be finished. Elder Gui and the rest were also anxious. That's right, young sect master. The Sunblaze sect is your home, and the Morong family was destroyed by the Tranquil Moon sect. Don't you want to take revenge and let your mother and master rest in peace? These words caused Jin Xian to stiffen slightly. His expression changed when he thought of his mother and master. Sima Jun found it very funny. You guys wanted to kidnap Jin Xian when you thought he had no one to rely on. Later, when you knew we were there, you wanted to set us up. Now that you know there's nothing you can do, You want to use morality to force him to do things for you guys. You guys are the good guys, and the benefits are also yours. You guys. Your skin is really thicker than the city walls. The heavens are watching. Aren't you afraid of retribution? Sima Jun's words caused Elder Zhua and the rest to turn red. However, they could not refute it because it was the truth. Jin Xian had already regained his composure. He looked at the few people in front of him and did not know what words to use to describe them. Those who bullied my mother and harmed my master back then. I will naturally take revenge on them one by one. Seeing this, Elder Zhua and the rest felt that there was hope and immediately added fuel to the fire. Young sect master, if you want to take revenge, you have to revive the Sunblaze sect first and let it help you. Hearing this, Jin Xian seemed to have heard the biggest joke in the world. After laughing twice, his gaze was cold. What right do you have to plan my path? You guys did not do anything back then, and even watched us get bullied by the side. You still have the delusion that I will repay evil with good? I must take revenge, but I don't need to rely on the Sunblaze sect. I have family and friends. Do you think I need you fence-sitters? After Jin Xian finished speaking, he bowed to his master. Master, I may need your and His Highness help in the following matters. Xiao Su immediately expressed his stance. There's no need to speak as if we're family. Xiao Su never spoke nonsense and always carried out what he said. In the past few years, Jin Xian had been loyal and devoted to his little fellow. Xiao Su had seen it all and had long regarded him as one of his own. These words were to establish Jin Xian's authority and support him. Chu Qingyan nodded heavily. Big Ice Cube's intentions were her intentions. Elder Zhua still wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Jin Xin. I don't want to listen to your flowery words anymore. Xiao Su gave the order, and these people were all taken away and locked up. After the people from the Sunblaze sect were taken away, Jin Xian bowed deeply to his master and Xiao Su. Master, His Highness, and everyone else, Jin Xian is unable to repay your great kindness. Please accept Jin Xian's bow. Before he could kneel, Jin Xian's hand was held by Xiao Su. Xiao Su's gaze was deep as he placed his trust in him. Don't be in a hurry to thank me. It won't be too late to say it after you've taken your revenge. Jin Xian was taken aback. His eyes then rippled with smiles as he nodded heavily. Yes, this subordinate obeys. Chu Qingyan looked at the two of them, and her heart was suddenly filled with warmth. In the past, Big Ice Cube didn't have anyone close to him. Later on, he had her and his parents. Later on, he also started to treat her family and friends as his own. Perhaps it was because he loved her, but she knew that from now on, Big Ice Cube would never be alone again. Chu Qingyan blinked her slightly wet eyes and then lowered her head to teach her son. Did you learn anything from what you've experienced these past few days? Xiao Kong thought for a moment and nodded. Heaven is watching what we do. We can't do bad things. He must have taken Sima's words to heart. Anything else? Xiao Kong thought. Also, baby has to work hard to become stronger so that he can protect himself and the people he wants to protect. Chu Qingyan stroked his head in relief. Not bad. Good and evil will be rewarded in the end. Maintain a positive heart and don't be bullied by others. Also, don't bully others. Do it with a clear conscience. Qingyan's class was on show every day. Xiao Su looked at his wife and son, a smile appearing in his eyes. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from outside. Everyone immediately became alert. Could it be that the high priestess had reinforcements? When everyone was ready to fight, a beautiful face appeared in front of everyone. Master, am I late? Chapter 1558. It was Water Spirit. Everyone was pleasantly surprised. Water Spirit, why are you here? Wood Spirit couldn't help but ask. Normally, she should be in charge of intelligence in the Sichuan Kingdom. Water Spirit scanned the crowd. When she saw that her masters were all safe and sound, she quickly walked in and replied to Wood Spirit. I'm here to protect you, of course. She immediately bowed to Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan. Master, young princess consort, I've arrived with 100 pigeon feathers. We're ready for your orders. Xiao Su nodded. Very good. Xiao was shocked. He sized up Water Spirit and the others and asked incredulously, "It's not easy to enter North Korea. There are many checkpoints along the way. How did you get here? Not to mention the mountain gate, the design of the pond was difficult to decipher without knowing the inside story. Could it be that Imperial Brothers' subordinates could fly?" This was not only Xiaoyao's question but everyone else's as well. At this moment, Ji Linyang answered everyone's doubts. "Brother Xiao and I left marks along the way. Water Spirit only needed to follow the clues we gave her to find her way in." Realization dawned on everyone. Xiaoyao was even more shocked. He didn't expect Imperial Brother to have a backup plan. No wonder Third Brother said that you shouldn't oppose Imperial Brother. Otherwise you wouldn't even know how you died. At this moment, Water Spirit suddenly said mysteriously to everyone, "Guess who else I've brought along?" Everyone looked at each other. Was there going to be another surprise? After receiving everyone's curiosity, Water Spirit turned around and smiled charmingly at the gate. "Why aren't you coming out? Haven't you had enough fun playing hide-and-seek for a few years?" Just as everyone was waiting anxiously, a beautiful couple appeared in front of them, hand in hand. The woman's beauty was unparalleled, while the man's elegance was refined. If they weren't Yanluo and Ethereal, who else could they be? Chu Qingyan sprang to her feet in excitement. She hurried over to greet her with tears in her eyes. "Yanluo, you're finally back." Chung Yanluo hurried over and held her best friend's hand. Her voice was choked with sobs as she said, "Yes, I'm back. It's such a pity that I missed your wedding and your baby. But don't worry, I won't miss it in the future." "It's okay. Back then, you left your hometown to help me save Zijing. I can't thank you enough." Chu Qingyan felt a little guilty. "Little princess, this is our duty as doctors. You don't owe us anything, but can you let go of Xiaoyan's hand first?" Seeing the young princess consort and his wife being so clingy, Ethereal couldn't stand it any longer, and immediately interjected in an attempt to bring his wife back to his side. Chung Yanluo had long seen through his little tricks. For so many years, as long as he could stick by her side, this person would do anything. Now that he was back, he was still acting like this. Wasn't he afraid of being laughed at? She rolled her eyes at Ethereal. "Go away. Go find your brothers and catch up. Don't bother us." Kong Ling could only go find his brothers in an aggrieved manner. Hualing saw him looking back 3 times with a reluctant expression, and slapped him in a resentful manner. Yo, you're a guy who forgets his friends when he sees a girl." Ethereal retracted his gaze, and turned into a male god in a second. He glanced at Hualing. "Take your claws away, or I'll apply medicine." The fire spirit glared at him, and unwillingly pulled back his claws. He then turned to complain to the earth spirit. "This fellow is still the same. To his wife he's as warm as spring, but to us he's as cold as winter. There's no harm without comparison." Turin couldn't help but laugh. At this moment, Ethereal walked forward and hugged Turin. "Brother, long time no see." The earth spirit patted him on the shoulder in response. Hualing felt like he had been abandoned by the entire world. He moved to Father Chu's side to seek comfort. "Old man, I'm so pitiful." Father Chu reached out and patted his head. "Good boy." Hualing instantly felt the warmth of spring, but he also felt that something was wrong. Why did he feel like the old man was patting by Yutong's triplets? Just as Chung Yanluo sat down, a soft and fluffy ball came to her feet. She lowered her head and saw a young child with beautiful makeup smiling at her. Her heart was bursting with joy as she immediately carried him up and asked, "Qingyan, this must be your little brat, right? He's so pretty." "Yanluo Yi is even prettier," Little Nkong said in a childish voice. Chu Qingyan was very helpless towards this son of hers. Every time he saw a beautiful girl or a handsome guy, he would eagerly go over. Chung Yanluo kissed him heavily. She felt that this child was really too sensible and adorable. She couldn't bear to part with him. Ethereal and Water Spirit both greeted their masters. After Xiao Su asked them a few questions about their experiences on the road, he let them go about their duties and prepare for the upcoming trip to North Korea. However, Water Spirit glanced at the door before she went down. She looked puzzled. Chu Qingyan noticed her strange behavior, and couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong?" Water Spirit thought for a moment and replied, "Young Master Dongting and Miss Tao were following us on the road just now. I don't know why they're gone now." Chu Qingyan was very surprised that Dongting and Tao Tao had actually come. She couldn't be more surprised. "Why are they here?" Water Spirit shook her head. "This subordinate doesn't know either. When we arrived at the foot of the mountain that day, we saw young Master Dongting and Miss Tao waiting there. After we explained our purpose, they came with us. Could it be that Dongting decided to come to North Korea after receiving her letter?" Chu Qingyan guessed. Ethereal overheard their conversation and came over to help explain. "I think I heard young Master Dongting say that he wanted to go sightseeing, and then Miss Tao Tao followed him. Perhaps they're out sightseeing now and will be back soon." "I see. Then this subordinate will send Pigeon Feather to find out where they are." Water Spirit volunteered to take on the task. Chu Qingyan nodded. It wasn't safe here. After all, this wasn't their territory, so it was better for them to reunite as soon as possible. At this moment, she couldn't help but look around. Including Dongting and the others, all the good friends she had made in her life were basically right in front of her. An indescribable feeling grew in her heart. Xiao Su held her hand. Using his strength and warmth, he told her that he would never leave her. Chu Qingyan tilted her head and looked at his handsome side profile. The corners of her eyes turned up. She smiled and held his hand back. "Why do I feel like we're not here to help Jin Xian find his relatives? Instead, we're here as a group for a vacation?" As far as the eye could see, Ethereal and Yin Luo were playing around in Kong. Sima and Ji Linyang were flirting with each other. Grandfather Emperor and Father Emperor were sparring with each other. Jin Xian and Xining were hiding in a corner and whispering to each other. Turin, Wood Spirit, Fire Spirit, Water Spirit, and the others were catching up on old times. The scene was lively and heartwarming. It didn't look like they were in a foreign land and had enemies eyeing them covetously. Xiao Su chuckled softly. "I'll make up for the honeymoon trip I owe you. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."